Okay, today we are going to talk about every single hero in the game, and what they are trying to do and how they go about doing it. The reason for this being that most people don't really understand what most heroes in the game are trying to do or how they go about doing it. We did this once before for the tanks, but now we're just going to do it for every single hero in the game. And we're going to go left to right, so we're starting with the offense category, and we're starting with Doomfist, who is a very fun hero to start with, isn't he? So, the offense category, broadly, is the one that applies pressure to the enemy team. They tend to be low on the utility end of abilities and more on the damage end. Genji does very little utility-wise for his team. He's entirely about pressuring the enemy team. Farah is about pressuring the enemy team. Tracer and Sombra are about pressuring the enemy team. Sombra has some supportive elements, but broadly speaking, the offense category is the category that applies pressure to the enemy team. So what does Doomfist do? Doomfist has an issue currently in the game, where the things that he is good at doing, other heroes just kind of do better and more consistently than him, which is why Doomfist is not currently played. And he also is extremely bugged right now, but even when those bugs are fixed, you will not see a significant increase in Doomfist play, because other heroes are simply better at what he does. So Doomfist was probably designed with the intention of being a flanker, because he is extraordinarily mobile, and he does very high burst damage, basically one-shotting a lot of heroes, and is quite good at killing tanks as well, because that's a lot of damage. His ultimate, of course, is also very high damage. He does a lot of burst damage, and he is largely based around his cooldowns. He was probably designed with the intention of being a flanker. The problem is that Doomfist himself is very big and not that survivable. So, the issue is you start flanking on Doomfist, and then the Mccrae, the soldier, the Roadhog, whatever, they just kill you, because you are a very big boy and only have 250 hit points. He also has this problem where if you miss any abilities, or just, like, make even the tiniest mistake, you often die as a result of that. He is very punishing for misplaying on. So, Doomfist is not a fantastic flanker, though he was likely designed with that intention. The other niche that Doomfist would fit into is defending your own team from flankers and divers. The problem is that other heroes are just better at doing that as well. So, Doomfist is in an awkward position where his niches are just better occupied by other heroes, and those heroes are more consistent, less punishing, and easier to play. So, less punishing to make mistakes on, I should say. So, I don't really recommend that you play Doomfist. I would just recommend picking up one of the other heroes. If you want to flank, you're better playing Genji or Tracer, and if you want to defend your own team, you're better playing Mccrae, Roadhog, Reaper, something like that. Doomfist himself, not very good. Though the ways you would... He is one of the more mobile heroes in the game. He's pretty good at stalling. If you need to get somewhere in a hurry, Doomfist can get there very quickly, because he does have a lot of mobility, but he himself is just quite lackluster as far as heroes go, and very punishing to make mistakes on. If you really like Doomfist and you want to be a master of Doomfist, don't let me stop you, but I wouldn't recommend it. That's going to be a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. You would, theoretically, the way you would see the most success is defending your own team. Doomfist is not very good at flanking, and if you end up missing abilities, you're just kind of in the middle of the enemy team, and then you die because you're a big boy. And like the way that the meta is right now, it's very hard to actually kill people, and there's a good possibility you'll run right into like a Bastion or something. Not really recommended. You'd be better off attempting to protect your own team from divers and flankers, or there are a few maps where Doomfist can get up to some interesting stuff because of his mobility. The first point on Eichenwald, he can do some interesting stuff around the bridge and the area behind the point. And like Nepal, he can get up to some stuff because he has some fairly unique mobility, but generally would not really recommend picking Doomfist. Other heroes do what he does better. So let's talk about a real hero now. Let's talk about Genji. So Genji is entirely based around killing people and applying pressure. Well, isn't that kind of what every hero is about, basically? Well, yes, straw man, that I've constructed for the purposes of mocking. That is basically what every hero does, but it's a bit of an oversimplification. Genji is one of those heroes that has almost no utility attached to him. And the only utility he does have is basically deflect, but that is ultimately self-serving. You can sometimes use it to protect somebody. You can see Roadhog's hooking somebody and get between him and the person and deflect the shot back at the enemy team, but that's fairly niche. Genji is basically about applying pressure to people. So, Genji himself is significantly worse than his ultimate. The reason to play Genji is to try and get to Dragon Blade as quickly as possible, because Dragon Blade is one of the strongest ultimates in the game, especially if comboed with, like, an Ana, for example, in which case you just kill the enemy team. It's one of those things where there's very little you can do about it, other than the enemy team basically gets lucky, or you very badly misplay. Genji can get into a lot of interesting places because he is very mobile. He can wall climb, he's got his dash, blah 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 blah. And he is also long range, because he is a projectile hero that can throw his projectiles very far, and they don't actually have any fall-off damage. So as a result of this, Genji is very good at poking people, because you can get into a lot of weird places, and get to them quite quickly, and then just do a lot of poking. And if you see the opportunity to kill someone, you can definitely go for that, because his dash has the component where if you get a kill, it resets the cooldown on the dash, allowing you to just go in, get the kill, and get back out again. But the way Genji really wins games is by using Dragon Blade, because it is an extraordinarily strong ultimate. It kills a lot of people. There are two predominant ways to play Genji, and both of them are equally valid. It mostly depends on your preference. The one example, the one everyone knows, is Seagull, who traditionally plays the very aggressive Genji, where you get behind the enemy team and you're constantly back there trying to kill people, and you're always doing something behind them. And then the other style of Genji, which you would see from, I can never remember this dude's name, Shatter 2K, something like that. The other style of Genji is that you stay largely with your team instead, and you just kind of hang around with your team, and you poke and prod at people, and if you see the opportunity to go in and kill somebody, you go in and then you dash back out again, because it's very easy for Genji to do that. But you predominantly play with your team, so it largely depends on your own preference. Both play styles work, obviously, and you can find examples of both. It largely depends on your personal preference. Though, ultimately, they're both trying to do the same thing, which is make big plays with Dragon Blade. And this is the other area that Genji players traditionally fall flat on, where they don't really appreciate how strong Dragon Blade is, or they don't execute it very well. Because the thing is, you have to sort of plan out what you're going to do, because the large benefit of Dragon Blade is you can kill people very quickly. So the idea is sort of this is generally what I recommend doing. You dash above the enemy team, draw the Dragon Blade, and then as you're like falling down on the enemy team, you've got time to look at what they are, what's going on down there, and you can plan to yourself what you're gonna do. The other reason to dash over the enemy team is, like, if you've got an Ana with you, she can't possibly miss you with the nano boost, which is an issue. And if you're playing Genji, hopefully you've got an Ana on your team, frankly, because Nano Blade is very scary. Now, that's a 10 out of 10 ult combo right there. It is basically automatic kills. Even if they have a Zenyatta, you can still kill people through Transcendence if you've been nano boosted, because you cut dash and that's just enough damage to kill them, even through Transcendence. So, but you have to plan out what you're going to do, because the idea, it all basically hinges on your dash. And if you're trying to kill a Mercy, what you'll usually do is you'll dash up to the Mercy, pull the Dragon Blade out, which resets your dash. Mercy's going to float away, then you dash after her, and then you cut her. So, depends on what you're kind of trying to do, but generally just like going over the enemy team, and then you plan it out as you're falling on them. Because you want to go, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to dash there and kill him, then I'm going to dash there and I'm going to kill him. And then you win the team fight, because you've killed, bare minimum, probably both of their supports, that's the idea. Or like a support and a DPS, something like that. You've killed important people. And Genji's one of those heroes that's very easy to carry games on because Dragon Blade is assuming you execute it correctly and don't do it while you're like 1v6, you'll probably kill a bunch of people and your team will win the team fight. It is not usually that difficult to win if Genji executes Dragon Blade correctly, because it is one of the best ultimates in the game. So that's basically how you play Genji. You poke very aggressively, you either are behind the enemy team all the time, or you're with your team. You're behind the enemy team predominantly or predominantly with your own team, and you're poking at people, picking off people if you get the opportunity, and you're just aggressively poking as much as possible so you can get to your very strong ultimate, which is hopefully going to win you the game. So that's basically what you're doing with Genji. So Mccrae is one of the more defensive, if the game would be so kind, Mccrea is one of the more defensive offensive heroes because he himself is very slow, he can't get to places very quickly, his only mobility is roll, which is not very good. And he's pretty big, you know, he's a fairly stocky guy, he's pretty easy to hit, so he's not very good at going into people. He is a more defensive hero. You will typically just sit with your Reinhardt behind his shield, and you'll try and pop heads, is the idea. Though Mccrea is also defensive because he is one of the few heroes in the game that has a form of hard crowd control in Flashbang. So he also has a bodyguarding element to him. And he is also one of the heroes that has very high carry potential because you can kill most heroes in 2 shots, or 3 shots if they're all body shots. He's one of the heroes that people really like to play, because when you do really well on Mccrea, it feels very good. But he does have, he's a slow hero, he's very easy to hit, so he is a more defensive hero. You sit with your tanks, and you try to pop heads. If the enemy team has flankers, you are the one that is meant to deal with that as Mccrae, because you are one of the few heroes in the game that have hard crowd control. So if your Mercy and Ana or whatever you've got are being bullied around by a Genji or a Tracer, you are the one that has the obligation to deal with that because you are the one that is very good at dealing with those heroes. Well, you're not very good at dealing with Tracer, but you're one of the best options we've got for dealing with Tracer. Tracer is one of the heroes in the game that doesn't really have any hard counters, but Mccrea is basically the best one we got. Doomfist was pretty good before they nerfed his hitbox, but that's a different issue. So, you have the obligation to sit with your backline and protect them from flankers if that's an issue that's currently plaguing your team. The way you basically win games is you sit with your tank and you pop heads on the enemy team. You sit behind your Reinhardt shield, you walk in with him, and you shoot people as you walk in. Do not go flanking. People like to go flanking with Mccrae. Mccrae is very bad at that because he's very slow, and Deadeye is not a very good flanking ultimate. Very easy to just suddenly get killed while using it. It's good for... The thing Deadeye is currently best use for it is killing Mercies when they use Valkyrie, because it's very hard to kill a Mercy who's using Valkyrie. Deadeye just kills the Mercy. Very minimum, it makes her get out of the way for 6 seconds, which is also a big deal in and of itself. But you basically win by sitting with your tank line, and you just pop heads. Or you sit with your backline and protect them from people. Mccrea is also a hero that benefits a lot from controlling the high ground, and he is one of the heroes that is best at controlling the high ground, because Genji comes up, rather not. You know, just kill the Genji, kill the Farah, whatever's trying to contest you, theoretically anyway. It's not as simple as that usually, but that's the idea. Because high ground is really strong. A lot of people don't appreciate how strong it is. I am firmly of the belief that you can just get up to platinum purely by controlling the high ground as somebody like Soldier or Mccrae, because you are so much stronger on the high ground, because it is harder for people to kill you. I'm bad, so don't mind me missing the training bots, but I play tanks, and Moira, I'm not the guy I'm not the one you come looking to for sick montages. It's easier to get headshots, it's easier to hit people, it's harder for you to get hit, it's harder for you to die, because you've got the ground that you can use as cover, and controlling the high ground is a really easy way to win the game, as somebody like Mccrae or Soldier, and some heroes are just really overpowered on the high ground. Soldier is more overpowered on the high ground than Mccrae is, but Mccrae also benefits from it, as all heroes with any kind of range do. Mccrae does not position exactly the same as Soldier. There is an issue people have where they basically think Mccrae and Soldier are the exact same hero. They are not, they just both have hit scan weapons. that's where the similarities basically end. Mccrea is a much shorter range hero than Soldier is. Mccrea's fall-off damage kicks in much earlier than Soldier's. Mccrea is still a decently ranged hero, which is why he does still benefit from high ground, but you typically will position much closer to the enemy team as Mccrea, and you will sit with your backline to protect them, but you are generally closer than Soldier. You are also less independent than Soldier is, because Soldier has self-healing, Mccrea does not. And because Soldier also has longer range and greater mobility and sprint, Soldier is better at sitting very far away and threatening a wide space. Mccrea threatens a much more narrow space, but the space he does threaten is more threatening than Soldier. Because even if you get close to Mccrea, that's no guarantee you kill Mccrea, because he can still do something like that. Soldier is weakest when people are right on top of him. Mccrea has some ways to defend himself. So, much narrower, a more narrow range than Soldier, but a more threatening range at the same time. So the other thing is, Deadeye is not very good at flanking, as we already established, but the other thing with Deadeye is that they buffed it so it's easier to kill people. You can now sometimes snag a kill with it if somebody's out in the open, which did not always happen. But one of the better uses of Deadeye is zoning, because it is just, I can't go into this space now for a very long time because Mccrea will kill me. So there are situations where you will be sitting behind your Reinhardt shield, and you'll just start ulting behind his shield, and then you can walk in with your tanks, something like that. Though it is currently used just to snag a random kill or two, or kill the Mercy who is in Valkyrie. It is it's not a huge playmaking ultimate, which a lot of people seem to interpret Deadeye as being, but it is not really. But that's basically how you play Mccrea. You sit with your front line or your back line, and you pop heads or protect the back line from flankers. You also, Farah, #1 priority. If there's a Farah in the game, you're one of the ones that's got to deal with that. Don't see the Farah up there and just oh, I can hit this Winston though, right? Like this Winston who's 10 miles away from me doing that. No, Farah. That's how you play Mccrea, basically. So, Farah is one of the very pressure-applying heroes. She applies some of the most pressure in the game. She's a very obnoxious hero to play against, because she does a lot of damage. She's one of those heroes that demands some kind of response from the enemy team, because if you just let a Farah sit above you for the entire game, just shooting at you, you lose the game, because Farah is that way. And of course, she can be very far away and still do damage as well, depending how good the Farah is. As you can see, I'm not very good at Farah, as I continue to miss the training dummies. I play tanks. Don't talk to me about it. So, the way you play Farah, the issue that Farah players have is that they are way too overly aggressive, basically. The way you play Farah, the way you win the game as Farah is by applying a fucking lot of pressure to the enemy team, because you do apply a fucking lot of pressure to the enemy team. You demand some kind of response from them. You play Farah and you kill a lot of people, and then you watch as slowly more hit scan heroes appear on the enemy team to counter you. It's a very satisfying feeling, honestly. You push tab 1 minute, and then suddenly you see, oh look, now they have Soldier, Mccree, and Widowmaker all of a sudden. It means you were doing your job, and now you should probably stop playing Farah for a while. But the issue Farah players have is that they are way too overly aggressive, and they don't think about cover. Because Farah has, of course, access to a line of sight that most other heroes don't have. Game lasted too long. Thanks, Blizzard. So, Farah has access to a line of sight that other heroes just, frankly, don't have any access to at all, which is, of course, the sky. And you can shoot over barriers, you can shoot over obstacles and all this stuff, and you can pressure people from really far away and from some unusual locations. The problem people have is that they tend to just do something like this, where they fly right over the enemy team, and they're just kind of out in open space, and they kind of just get killed. Farah, you have to think about cover in the third dimension. You can't just float out into open space because you'll get killed, because you're just this character slowly floating through the sky and very easy to kill. You have to actually use cover in the sky. You have to actually, still use cover and, like, peek corners and stuff, and you have a projectile weapon, so if the Farah is just in the sky, peeking a corner over and over again, it's actually very difficult to kill her, especially if she's getting any support at all from, a support. A bit of an awkward sentence, but it's very hard to deal with. If you're playing Farah really well, where you're just, like, always using cover and, like, positioning well, and, like, peeking corners, and you got a support healing you, not killing you, Soldier, for example, basically can't kill you, because Soldier has to shoot you too many times for you to actually die, as long as you're using cover. So, and at that point, if you're playing really well, it does take, like, a Mccrae or a Widowmaker to kill you, because they require less effort. They don't require less effort, they have to shoot you less times. But the issue is people are way too overly aggressive. They just, like, float out in open space, and, like, oh, they want to kill people, and they just float out over the team. I'm gonna get them. That's really easy to kill the Farah that's doing that. You have to actually think about cover. Sometimes you go up and Goomba Stomp somebody, if you find them out of position, or you see an opportunity to kill someone, but quite rarely. You are usually just sitting really far away, basically poking at people constantly. Farah is very good at facilitating picks with the enemy team, because it doesn't take much effort to kill someone as Farah. You only have to hit them a couple of times and they die. And because your damage is AoE and very high, you can also just set up other people. You got like a Mccrea on your team or a Genji on your team, and you're just doing this splash damage to people. It's not unforeseeable that they're just going to slide in and kill somebody as well, finishing them off after you did some damage to them. If you don't finish them off yourself as well, if they were out of position. So she's very good at facilitating picks and applying pressure to the enemy team, which is what the offense heroes generally do, but Farah is on the upper end of pressure applied. You do need to respond to the Farah. Another thing that people don't really think about is Concussive Blast. Concussive Blast is usually used for your own mobility more than anything else. People love to just kind of push people around with Concussive Blast for no reason, which is bad. You would use Concussive Blast to, like, spread the enemy team out to make it easier to sort of segregate them and make it easier to kill people. You would use it to knock them off high ground or knock them into a pit. That's kind of it. People love to just kind of, like, push people around with Concussive Blast. Concussive Blast is a 12-second cooldown. That's very long. And it is more often used as personal mobility more than anything else. Because if you watch people who are really good at Farah, you'll watch them just aggressively poking constantly, and they'll build up their barrage really quickly. They'll pick somebody off if they get the opportunity, but they're just constantly poking the enemy team from, like, a variety of places. You gotta try and keep yourself unpredictable and poke from multiple locations, not just one place. But they'll really aggressively poke, and they'll build up barrage really quickly. And then you'll watch as they'll just, like, come out and Concussive Blast right over to exactly where they want to be, and then just kill everyone with barrage. It's usually used for your own mobility, either to get into position to kill somebody or to get away from danger quickly. You don't just, like, push people around for the sake of it, because people love doing that. They love just pushing them around for no reason. You are meant to be doing that for a reason, not just for the sake of it. But basically, that's how you play Farah. You apply a lot of pressure to the enemy team, you facilitate picks, and when you build up barrage, hopefully you got a Zarya to combo with, but hopefully Farah is one of those heroes that can do some flanking, where you would just sort of float above the enemy team. It's very important if you're flanking as Farah, don't fire while you're doing it, because the idea is sort of to get behind them without you knowing, without them knowing rather, because barrage is very easy to die while you're doing it. So you would just sort of float over like a building or something, drop down behind the enemy team, and then just kill people before they know what the fuck hit them. Or you would just suddenly fly over in the middle of a team fight, barrage people, and kill them. Or you would combo with Zarya, which is obviously the easiest one. But that's basically what you do with Farah. Very important, though, if you're trying to flank with barrage, do not fire while you're doing it, because you don't want them to know you're coming to flank them with barrage. But you apply a lot of pressure, you facilitate picks, and then during team fights you hope to just kill them with barrage. Or just shoot them. Very direct way to do it, but does happen sometimes. So now Reaper. Reaper is one of my favorite heroes to play in the game, because he's quite versatile. He does a few different things. So, Reaper is one of those heroes that can flank people. He is also very good at applying pressure, and he is one of the few heroes in the game that's good at applying pressure to tanks as well. He is the tank buster in the game because, shotguns are really good at killing a big person, because all the pellets are going to hit them. So, the most commonly picked reason to pick Reaper is you're killing tanks. If they've got a Winston on their team, or a Deva, you pick Reaper, and you have a great time killing that person, and there's not very much they can do about it, they just have to avoid you, basically. So, there are a few different ways you can play Reaper. He's a very versatile hero. You can sit with your own front line, like you can sit with your Reinhardt and go in with him and pressure the other tank. And you're a big beefy boy, you got 250 hit points, you're smaller than Doomfist. And you've got Lifesteal, and Wraith Form is a pretty good way to get out of trouble. So you can sit with your Reinhardt, walk in with him, or just your tank line, it doesn't have to be a Reinhardt, whatever. You just walk in with your tanks, pressure the enemy team's front line as you're going in, just like consistent big damage to their front line as you're going in, and stuff like that. The other way you can play him is you can flank. He is harder to flank with than, say, Genji or Tracer is, because you can kind of wing it to an extent with Tracer or Genji, because they are very mobile heroes. Reaper, however, is quite slow and quite lumbering. He's very telegraphed. The way you flank as Reaper is you use teleport to get you into a position that the enemy team can't see you teleporting in. This is the very pivotal thing. You don't want the enemy team to really know that you've used teleport, because as soon as they know, they're looking for you. And don't forget, Reaper is slow. You can't Wraith Form up to somebody. You have to walk up to them, so you don't want them to know you're coming. So the idea is, like, choke points here. You see, like, a way to get behind them. You just, like, teleport, so they can't. You teleport out of line of sight into another place that's out of line of sight. And then you come up behind the enemy team and you go, alright, here's their Mercy or whatever. I'm just going to walk up on the Mercy, try and kill her, hopefully I do, and then I can just Wraith Form back through the front line, back to my team again, and then I can just rinse and repeat until it works. And then, of course, Death Blossom, you can just teleport above the enemy team, and then spin down on them, which is an old favorite of Reapers. So you can flank, but you have to be very deliberate about it. You have to know what you're doing, you've got to be teleporting out of line of sight into another place that's out of line of sight, because if you teleport in line of sight, you die. This is what happens. So you've got to be sneaky about it. He's a very stealthy hero, so you've got to try and be clever about it. You've got to be very deliberate, because Reaper himself is slow, so you have to know what you're doing. And then the other way you can play Reaper is basically purely defensively, because he is good at killing dive heroes. So if the enemy team is like, just imagine it's like a traditional dive comp. They've got Winston, Deva, Lucio, Genji, whatever. You are fantastic at killing Winston and killing Deva and just tanks in general. So, if Winston is causing your team a lot of trouble, you can pick Reaper, sit with your backline, and just kill Winston when he gets in. And even if you don't kill Winston, he has to respect you because you will kill the Winston. So, you just sort of sit with your backline. Winston can't do anything. You're too threatening to him. Deva as well, any tank really, but these are like the tanks that we will most commonly be picking to counter as Reaper. Deva used to counter Reaper, but not so much anymore. Now Reaper's really good against Deva, because Defense Matrix got mega nerfed. And the thing is, though, if you're picking... this is very important. If you're picking Reaper for that reason, that you're killing, trying to kill a Winston or a Deva or what have you, you have to actually do that, right? And that sounds like so obvious, right? Like, of course you have to actually kill the person you're countering. No, a lot of people will pick Reaper to kill Winston, and then just go flanking. You can't have it both ways. If you're picking Reaper to counter Winston, you have to not flank. You have to actually sit with your team and kill the Winston when he dives in. You can't have it both ways. You have to actually sit with your team and protect them from the tank diving on them. Most people don't do that. They just pick Reaper and they're like, oh, I'm countering Winston, and then they never actually look at the Winston. They just go flanking. You can't do that. You have to actually counter the person. So Reaper is quite a versatile hero. He can be played in basically all major positions. He can flank, he can just be with his front line, and he can be played defensively as well. He has a lot of ways to win the game, though the typical way that you'll win the game is you will go in with your front line, or you'll flank, and you'll kill somebody important very quickly. You'll get up on their Mercy, what have you, their Zenyatta. Someone important, you'll kill their tank, you'll kill an important person, and then you'll, like, spin. You'll kill a couple other people, and you'll win the game like that. That's usually how you'll win, though Reaper is a very versatile hero. He can be played in a lot of positions, and he can accomplish a wide variety of things. Except kill Farah. Farah counters you. And you have to be really careful around Roadhog, because Roadhog can kill you with his hook as well. Because right-click, hook, left-click, kills Reaper. So, but he can be played in a lot of positions. I like him because he's one of those, he's a big guy, he does a lot of pushing people around. He's a very decisive hero. He's a very short-range hero. There's no, like, poking and prodding, right? You're either in or you're not. You gotta get up in people, like, I've got shotguns. I'm gonna go kill them. He requires very decisive and deliberate play, but he can be played in a lot of positions. Very versatile hero. I like him a lot. So now, Soldier. So, Soldier is similar to Mccrae in that they are hit-scan heroes, and that's basically it. So, Soldier is a very independent hero because he is an offense hero that has self-healing, and quite good self-healing as well. So, and Sprint is a surprisingly good mobility for how benign it is, really. It's just like, oh, you sprint somewhere, but it's pretty good. Like, you get somewhere very fast if you need to. Not as over a short distance, obviously, like a Tracer or a Genji is going to beat you, but like, Soldier himself, the goal is basically to sit on high ground and pressure a very large zone, because Soldier's weapon is very long range, and even when it's even when it's doing fall off damage, like, it does 20 base. If its fall off is like it's only doing like a couple of fall off, like 1 or 2 fall off damage, it's not the end of the world. It's not that big of a deal. And because of Sprint, he can cover long distances to get into high ground positions quite quickly, for a hero that has no vertical mobility anyway, because you just sprint all the way up there. And the reason you want to be on high ground is because it basically affords you the largest line of sight possible, because this is what Soldier is really good at doing. He's a very consistent source of damage, because he's got an automatic weapon, and Helix Rocket is good burst damage as well, but he just does very consistent damage. He's not going to do the highest damage in the game. Well, he probably will over a very extended period of time. But, like, in terms of burst damage, he's fairly low, right? Like, Mccrae will beat him, Reaper will beat him, stuff like that. But he just does really very consistent, mediocre damage. And his zone of threat is very large. It's basically his entire line of sight. He's not quite sniper range like Widowmaker is, but he's one notch below that. So the idea is to get into the place that gives you the largest line of sight possible, which is usually on high ground, and you just threaten the entire space, because you do threaten basically your entire line of sight. And because you can self-heal, you're very independent. You don't have to rely on a support to heal you, so you can afford being further back than most people can. And then, if you need to reposition quickly, Sprint is pretty good. You can do some helix jumping as well to get in places quickly as well, blah, 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 blah. But basically the idea is you sit in a really far away spot, threaten a huge space, and just do really consistent damage. And you also break barriers. Because you do very consistent damage output, you're one of the better heroes in the game at breaking barriers as well. The Reinhardt's walking towards you, you're just shooting him the entire time, and his barrier will break quite quickly. Especially since you're probably getting help from somebody else. And then, Tact Visor is also a very good ultimate. It's like very close to Dragon Blade in terms of threat. And then you put Tact Visor on, and you just kill everybody who's out of position, and you're just very threatening while you're using Tact Visor, because you kill someone very, very fucking fast. But other than that, you just sit back and you do consistent damage in a very wide area, and that's how you apply pressure to the enemy team as Soldier. You're just doing a constant stream of damage to them. And you're very independent. Common issue Soldier players have is they're too afraid to use... They're not afraid, but they're too... They treasure Helix Rocket too much as a cooldown. It's not a utility ability, it's a purely damage ability with a pretty low cooldown. And Soldier's thing is just about doing as much consistent damage as possible, so you should just be throwing Helix Rocket out as frequently as you can. If you think you can hit somebody with Helix Rocket, if you think you should just throw that Helix Rocket out there, people are like, oh, but I need it to kill somebody in a duel. I mean, okay, if you're just throwing it out there on cooldown, duels aren't happening constantly. Some of the cooldown is going to be gone, and you don't just burst somebody to death in a duel typically, unless it's like a Tracer came at you and you got like a lucky Helix on them or something like that. Yeah, okay, if you're in a duel, you'll want it to kill them, but Soldier's not a dueling hero. Like, you are just meant to be sitting back doing constant damage, and just using Helix Rocket as frequently as possible makes you do more damage. Even, like, breaking a barrier, you should just throw it into the Reinhardt's barrier, because it's just 120 damage to the barrier suddenly. That's a lot of... That's over 10%. Well, it's over 10% of Irisa's shield, and then it's, like, 5% of, Reinhardt's barrier. And that's a bigger deal than it sounds like it is. I know it doesn't sound all that impactful, but, like, it is. You want to break barriers as quickly as possible. You're just about doing consistent damage. And control the high ground. If you are a soldier main and you're in bronze, I'm telling you, man, if you just control the high ground in every game, you'll climb to, like, gold really easily. And you can get the platinum pretty easy still, because people do not appreciate how strong high ground is. Soldier is extremely overpowered on high ground. And people will not contest you on high ground in low SR games because they don't understand how important it is. So you can just sit up on, like, what's a really good example? You can just sit up on, like, the high ground on Dorado, right? First and second checkpoint. And just sitting up there, they won't contest you, and you're just extremely threatening this wide zone of threat. Just doing constant damage to them, and they're not contesting you. It's very hard to deal with that if nobody's trying to contest you. You'll win high ground is very important. That's how you play soldier. You just do a constant stream of damage, very consistent. You threaten a very wide space. And then when you see people out of position or barriers break or what have you, kill a bunch of people with Tac Visor. Also, very threatening ultimate with Nano Boost as well. Nano Visor, second best combo in the game, behind Nano Blade. But that's how you play Soldier. Constant stream of damage, threaten a wide space, control high ground. Win game. Easy hero. So now we're on to Sombra. Sombra, I am of the very firm belief that Sombra is the most overpowered hero in the entire game. But the caveat is that she is also the hardest hero to play in the entire game. I know how to play Sombra. I can't play Sombra. She's very difficult to play. Because there's a lot of things going on. So she is still basically about pressuring the enemy team. She does it in a very unique fashion, though, because she has the most unique mobility in the entire game. So the way that you play Sombra is... It's very map dependent, because you play around health kits on the map. Because you hack the health kit, you put the translocator on it, you never die. Very, very straight. You don't die as long as you always have your translocator out when you're going to try and pressure people. So the idea is that you find, like, the best health kits on the map. And you hack the health kit, and then you put the translocator there. You stealth out into a very unusual position. Sombra can relocate into very unusual places and come at people from odd angles. And you're just very safe, because even if they turn on you, poof, you're just gone. Back on the health kit, no problem. Unless they get you with hard crowd control, you don't die as Sombra. Then this is basically what you do. A common issue with Sombra players is that they are... One of the main benefits of Sombra is that she is an extraordinarily unpredictable hero. But what they usually do is they just go, alright, they find, like, the best health kit on the map, right? Like Hollywood, right? First checkpoint, they just pick that big health kit behind the point. And they go, this is where I sit now. And then they just constantly play around that health kit for the entire game. That makes you so predictable if you're always attacking from the same angle. Sombra is very unpredictable because of her stealth, and she can get somewhere extremely fast because of Translocator. Just using one health kit as your base is like is just not utilizing all of Sombra's strength. She's so unpredictable. You want to pick out like 3 or 4 health kits for every map, right? And go like, alright, I've attacked from this health kit a couple of times now, they're starting to get wise to that, so now I'm going to start playing around this health kit instead. And you just vary up your angle of attack, and it makes you way less predictable, and as a result, it makes you way more threatening. So, the thing that is very overpowered about Sombra, though, this is the reason she is the most overpowered hero in the game, is her ultimate, because hacking people is very strong. And the EMP is AoE hack. If you execute it correctly, the enemy team, they don't even have they have no recourse. There's nothing they can do to stop the attack other than don't get EMP'd. Because once you do it, they're all hacked, they can't use any of their abilities. A lot of heroes just aren't heroes anymore once they get hacked. If you hack a Reinhardt, then fuck, he's the worst hero in the game at that point, right? Like, some heroes are just gutted if they get emped. And if the hero has shields, Azaria, shield health, Symmetra, Zenyatta, the Emp scrapes the shield off them. So Zenyatta, Emp does 150 damage to Zenyatta. It scrapes sound barriers off people, it breaks any barriers that are currently up. Reinhardt's holding his barrier, shatters. It doesn't just like, he can't bring it up. No, it breaks it if he was holding it up. And there's nothing people can do about it. So the entire idea around playing Sombra is that you're trying to get to your ultimate as quickly as possible, because that's how you win the game of Sombra. You emp the entire enemy team. And you do this, you can hack health kits that are near your team as well, and you get ult charge off of people healing from your health kits as well. So you hack, like, the health kit that's near your team, and you go, alright team, I have hacked this health kit. Play around it, and that'll vary based off your team. And then you go off pressuring the enemy team. That's when you start going behind them and going, alright, these are the health kits I'm going to play around, I will now play around these health kits. And you will pressure people. You will try to kill people if possible. Obviously if you can get up behind the Mercy and just kill her with your SMG, great, fantastic, awesome. But, that's a bonus, right? That's your hope to do that, but you don't rely on it because the Emp is what you're really banking on winning you the game. So you're just really safe, you play around health kits, you pick out the best health kits to play, or you pick out the best health kits on the map, and you play around all of them, you vary up your angle of attack, you can reposition extremely fast because of Translocator and Stealth, and you just play around those health kits, you vary up your angle of attack, you just try and pressure and heckle the enemy team as much as possible, the backline, ideally. If you can't get up on a backline because you risk dying for whatever reason, bully a tank, very easy to do, very easy to hit from your SMG, with your SMG from even far away. Bully a tank if you can't get to the backline. But you're just constantly applying pressure, constantly varying up your angle of attack to make yourself as unpredictable as possible. Build up your Emp, then you go, okay, I got my Emp, now I wait for my team to be ready to fight, I go in, I either stealth in, I translocate in, whatever, I emp the entire enemy team, and then we win the fight because how can we possibly lose? They can't use any of their ultimates or their abilities. If you play against a really good Sombra, it is the most oppressive feeling in the entire world, because you just feel like there's nothing you can do to stop her. So, I firmly believe she is the most overpowered hero in the game, but she's very difficult to play. So it's okay that she's overpowered, because very few people can actually leverage that. Because there's so many things going on with Sombra. She has a very heavy game sense requirement, because you have to know how to move around the map, you have to know the best places to be, you have to know when to attack, when to play passively, you have to line up your Emp with your own team, which requires less coordination than people think it does, but you have to line it up with your team. It's worthless if you're using it by yourself. It is required that you have your team with you. So there's a very heavy game sense requirement for Sombra. And then she also still has a mechanical requirement because, it's an SMG. I'm not going to tell you it's a fucking sniper rifle precision weapon, but she has an aim requirement as well, and you have to be able to, throw your translocator in places, you have to be able to juke around and stuff, you have to actually know how to, there's a mechanical requirement and a very heavy game sense requirement. So Sombra is extremely difficult to play. But if you have mastered Sombra, she has the biggest payoff of any hero in the game for being a master of her. She's just also very hard to play. If you want to play Sombra, you have to acknowledge that there is going to be a very long period in time where you are bad at Sombra, and you are going to feel like complete dead weight to your team. Because you will be. But once you get over that hump, and you get really good at the game sense, you know all the angles of attack, you've gotten good at feeling out when your team is ready to fight relative to the enemy team, once you've gotten all of this down, the payoff is massive. So, very steep learning curve, more of a learning overhang, but incredible payoff at the end of it. Very difficult hero to play, but it is pressure the enemy team as much as possible, be unpredictable, and then win the game with your ult, because it is incredibly powerful. And then, just fuck with people with hack as well. In a lot of team fights, hacking someone is usually more important than doing damage with your SMG, unless you can kill somebody else, obviously. But hacking someone is usually a bigger deal than shooting someone, unless you know you're going to kill them. So, that's basically how you play Sombra. So the last offense hero in the game, Tracer. And Tracer is also entirely about killing somebody. No utility attached to Tracer at all. Entirely based around killing. Tracer is very straightforward in terms of how you're meant to play her. It is basically all mechanical skill, because she's hard to play. But what she's trying to do is very straightforward. She's trying to apply a lot of fucking pressure. She's trying to get in there. She's trying to kill people. There's nothing else to her. There's no utility, there's no peeling, there's none of that. There's just getting in there, and there's applying pressure. You don't ever want to be, like, fighting with your front line. I see a lot of Tracer players hanging around with, like, their Reinhardt or whatever, just, like, basically playing a bad soldier, where they're sitting and, like, trying to poke at the enemy team or what have you. That's not how you play Tracer. You're basically playing a bad soldier if you're doing that kind of thing. Just play soldier. The reason you're playing Tracer is you're trying to get behind people and you're trying to kill people. If you are not applying pressure to the enemy team and killing people, you're not playing Tracer very well. She is entirely based around pressuring people. She is not good at poking and prodding. She can do it if she has to, but she's not meant to do that. You are trying to get behind people, you're trying to pressure their backline as much as possible, you're trying to kill high priority targets, so their supports are obviously very high priorities. Mercy, Zenyatta's very easy to kill because he's a big floating box. He's very easy to one-clip kill as Tracer. And you're trying to get... Your ultimate charge is extremely fast, and it is basically a guaranteed pick. And you're trying to use it as quickly as possible because it does build up extremely quickly. And you just rub up on someone, throw it on them, and stick them. I'm bad, so obviously I miss a training bot. We've already been over that one today. But you build it up, you just get in there, you stick it to the Mercy, and she dies. And there's nothing she can do about that. Right? Like, Zarya has to save her. Right? Like, there's nothing Mercy can do to save herself. There's nothing... like Lucio can do to save himself. There is nothing Ana can do to save herself. It's a guaranteed pick on a lot of heroes. Don't stick tanks unless you have to, because it kills no tank straight up, except Zarya. But Zarya is scary to stick for other reasons. But no other hero gets 100 to 0'd by the Pulse Bomb. So you have to know that you can do follow-up damage to them, or that they're low enough that the bomb will kill them straight up. Don't recommend it, just stick a squishy, because there's so little that most heroes can do to save themselves from Pulse Bomb. Like, it often requires intervention from somebody else. So it is all about getting behind the enemy team, pressuring them as much as possible, killing people, picking people off, and then building up your ultimate to, like, really easily pick people off. Or combo it with Graviton. Graviton Pulse Bomb is one of the strongest ult combos in the game because one of the ways you counter Graviton is with Transcendence. Pulse Bomb kills you through Transcendence. So Graviton Pulse Bomb is a very strong ult combo as well because it kills people through Transcendence. So, all about pressure, all about picks, all about killing people. There's no utility. You're in there, you're aggressive, you're applying pressure. You want that Mercy, that Ana, that whatever, you want them to be fucking afraid of you. You want them to be playing so far back behind their team, they are doing basically nothing. That's how you win the game as Tracer. She is very straightforward to play in these terms. It is all mechanical skill with Tracer. There are a couple of, like, good habits. Never be completely out of blinks is one thing. You'd never want to be sitting around at full blinks either, because then the cooldown is doing nothing. So you want the cooldown to be ticking as much as possible. You don't ever want to be out of blinks, though. You always want to have one. Unless you're just, like, running away, or you're gonna blink in 3 times, pulse bomb, recall out, or you're just, like, running away, then you'll use all 3 blinks. But you always want to have one in reserve. There is a sort of rhythm to playing Tracer, where because blink does not interrupt your animations, you can reload while you're blinking. So the idea is that you go up to somebody, you empty your clip, you reload, and then while you're reloading, you blink because you're keeping mobile. You're doing something during the period of downtime, basically. Because you're reloading, you're not doing damage, right? So you blink while you're reloading to keep yourself mobile, doing something during your period of downtime. So you spend like a second using your clip, basically. You spend about a second doing that, you spend about a second reloading, and then there's this kind of rhythm where you're shooting, reloading, blinking, blah, 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 blah. So there's that. There's also if your recall is down, you need to play more defensively as Tracer, because that's how you get out of trouble. Blink itself is not necessarily going to save you, recall is. So you have to be careful about going in aggressively while recall is on cooldown, because you're suddenly very easy to suddenly kill. Right? Tracer's a very soft hero, so if recall is on cooldown, it is very easy to suddenly die, and there isn't that much you can do about it. So if recall is on cooldown, be careful. And then, when you've got your ultimate, just use it as quickly as possible. Don't sit on it for an extended period of time. If you're trying to line it up with Graviton, you might want to hold on to it. But otherwise, just go out there. Throw it out. You want to use it as quickly as possible. You can start working on the next one. So, that's basically how you play Tracer. So now we are on to the defense category. So, the defense category typically is not very good, because the thing that the defensive heroes are good at is they set up a zone of control, and they are very threatening in that zone of control, but only really in that zone. They are not very good at moving around and attack. And if somebody attacks them on, like, not their own ground, they are significantly weaker. So this is why defense heroes are traditionally the weakest heroes in the game. A type of speaking, that is not necessarily true, because at the time of speaking, Mercy is extremely strong, which makes makes it very hard to kill people, which sort of favors a more turtling style that heroes like Bastion and Torbjorn facilitate. Also, maps like Horizon and Junkertown are absolute fucking disasters that very much encourage these cheese cancer comps, basically. So, Bastion, though. How do you play Bastion? Well, he's very straightforward. You sit in an area, and you control that area, and you fuck people who enter that area, and that's basically it. He is a very straightforward hero to play, and it is for this reason that, he's not really allowed to be that good, because he's extraordinarily simple to play. So if numbers get turned just a little bit too high on Bastion, he completely destroys the game. If he's ever too good in a situation, he completely shuts out all other options, because he is extraordinarily simple to play. This is why the pirate ship comp on Junkertown is very popular. It's extremely easy. You sit on the payload, Bastion left-clicks the enemy team, and you just go straight through. Very easy. Why it's very popular and very effective. It actually works on that map. And because it works on that map, it makes all other strategies very difficult to actually execute. Don't walk off the map, though. That's not generally an advised option. But he's very easy to play. The problem that most Bastion players have is that they don't really appreciate how easy they are to kill. So you want to be with a tank. You work best with Reinhardt and Irisa, because you can sit behind the shields and they can protect you, and you can just sit there doing this extreme amount of damage. Your team has to play around you. Bastion doesn't really work if your entire team is like dive focused and you pick Bastion. Bastion's going to end up doing probably nothing, because you're extremely easy to kill. You need people to help you. So if your team aren't helping you, you're usually better off picking a different hero, because you're very easy to kill when you are just left to your own devices. You have to be afraid of heroes like Roadhog and Ana, because they can take you out of turret form, and when you're out of turret form, you're extremely fragile, because you don't have the defense boost anymore. So if you get hooked out, you get slept out, suddenly very easy to kill. But you have to play with your team, you have to sit behind people, you sit in this zone, and you threaten that zone. You do have to get up and move around. You can very rarely sit in one place the entire time and just kill people because they, like, single file murder themselves on you. You have to actually, like, if you see that the shields in front of you are breaking, you have to be ready to get up and move. You can't just sit there and expect, like, the Mercy to heal you through all four heroes suddenly, like, shooting you in the face. Like, you have to be willing to get up and move around. But basically, you sit with your tank line, and you just pressure this area. Maps like Horizon are very good at this, because the first checkpoint, now you just sit on the point behind the shields, and they kind of have to come into you, so there's not very many options for them, so you just sort of kill them as they come through. You are very good at breaking barriers. You are very good at killing tanks. Those are your number one priorities. You see Reinhardt marching towards you. Don't let him break that shield. Winston's jumping in. Kill that man. He's not allowed to do that. Here comes Deva. No, kill Deva now, because she wasn't allowed to do that either. Bastion super counters tanks with the exception of Roadhog, because hooked. Suddenly not very scary anymore. Though if he can't hook you, yeah, you kill him as well. So tanks are number one priority. Don't be afraid. Don't just sit in one place. Get up, move around. Don't sit there and die like a little... Don't just sit there like, oh yeah, my team will protect me. No, you're gonna die. Get up and move around. And then, don't use, like, tank as a defensive thing, because I've seen Bastions, they get hooked forward, and they're like, I'm going to use tank now, because I'll survive the fight and start killing people. No, if you start using tank, if you use configuration tank in a bad situation, it is not going to make that situation better, you're just going to die. So don't do that either. But Bastion, very easy hero to play. Don't be the Bastion that sits around just constantly in one position and just lets people kill him. You have to actually, like, get up and move around now and then. So Hanzo, a source of great salt in the community, of course, because most Hanzo players are very bad. To be fair, I don't think this is entirely Hanzo's fault, because I think The problem is that Hanzo, he's not really a sniper. I'll start off by saying he's categorized as a sniper, but he isn't really a sniper. Because projectile weapons are not that great at extremely long ranges. I mean, you know, they're fucking tree trunks, so you can still do it. Like, if you just keep peeking the corner over and over again, like, the Widow is not having a good time. You can just do it over and over again, and the Widow has a hard time killing you, and you can just keep doing it until you kill the Widow. And you got Sonic Arrow, which rigs it a little bit. But I think Hanzo's kit is relatively inconsistent. I think if it wasn't for Scatter Arrow, Hanzo would be completely useless as far as heroes go. Because, yeah, he does a lot of damage, but it's not very consistent damage, because it's a projectile weapon. And yeah, obviously there's a skill testing element to it, you have to actually hit people and all that. Because it's a projectile, there's an inherent amount of randomness to it, right? You're not always going to hit somebody, because people are fast in Overwatch. If they're just kind of like moving around randomly, there's an element of just rolling a dice involved in it. So while yes, you do a lot of damage and a very high amount of burst damage, it's relatively inconsistent. I kind of wish that Hanzo maybe did slightly less damage, but had more utility attached to him. Like, I think it would be very cool if Hanzo was a Green Arrow type of character, where he just had a bunch of different arrows that do different things. Because he's already got, like, two arrows already, but if he had, like, an explosive arrow that does, like, less damage, but it's AoE, if he had, like, an arrow that does less damage, but it goes through barriers, or something like that, if he had, like, Frost Arrow, so it, like, shatters and does, like, very, very little damage, but it slows people in the area. I think that would be a lot better, because I think that he would have more consistency in his kit than he currently has. Because the most consistent thing in his kit currently is Scatter Arrow, because it's pretty easy to just throw it at somebody's feet and kill somebody. Even Sonic Arrow, there's the element where you can throw it where you think the enemy team's going to go, and then they just go a completely different way. Even that has an inherent amount of inconsistency to it. So, there's that. But anyway, how do you win the game as Hanzo? You kill people. That's basically it. You have almost no utility attached to you. Hanzo is much closer to being an offense hero than he is a defense hero. I think he is miscategorized. Because he's not very good at controlling a zone, which is what the other defense heroes are meant to do. You're meant to sit in a zone and control it. Hanzo's not good at that. Right? Hanzo's good at applying pressure to the enemy team. He is comparatively close range. He's not he's not a Widowmaker sniper. His effective range is closer to soldiers than it is to Widowmakers. But basically the way you win the game as Hanzo is you kill a lot of people, you pick people off. That's what you have to do, because there's no other way for you to win the game. You have no utility attached to you, except for Sonic Arrow, but even that inherently is still about killing people, right? And even his ultimate is not fantastic unless comboed with other people, because it's very slow and it's very telegraphed. If the enemy team does something where they funnel into an extremely crowded area, like you see them all suddenly, like on Mambani first point, you see them like, defending team suddenly goes into, like, the room at the top or beneath, and you Dragon Strike through that room, you kill a bunch of people. Yeah, but that's kind of it. Otherwise, people can get out of the way. It's also one of the better combos with Graviton, a very famous combo, everyone knows that one. But you can't rely on your ultimate in the same way that Genji can. Genji can pick people off with just his weapon, yes, but he can use Dragon Blade, and that's a way more consistent and, like, basically guaranteed way to do it. Hanzo does not have that to fall back on. His ultimate is significantly worse than Dragon Blade's is. So he basically has to pick people off with his weapon, and, like, Scatter Arrow and, like, Sonic Arrow facilitate that, sure, but you have to pick people off. There's no other way you win the game. He has unique mobility because he can wall climb, so he can get up into weird places and do stuff as well. You know, there's all of that. But basically the way you win the game as Hanzo is you have to be really good at hitting abilities, and you have to be really good at hitting your shots, rather. And you have to pick people off. That's basically it. He's quite low on the game sense requirement. He's very high on the mechanical requirement. And he's one of those heroes where if you want to play Hanzo, he is one of those heroes where you have to acknowledge that there is going to be a long period of time you are not good at playing Hanzo, and you are going to be pretty much dead weight to your team. But he does have a quite high payoff in the end because he does do a lot of damage. If you play against a really good Hanzo, it can feel really, really bad. Though even the best Hanzos in the world are a little bit inconsistent because it's a projectile weapon, it's really hard to use, and certain heroes, like, really fuck with Hanzo. Like, Winston suddenly on your case, that's really hard to deal with as Hanzo. Like, you can kill people really fast. If you have a really good game as Hanzo, you will have a really good game. But your bad games are going to be really bad games. So, but basically the way you win as Hanzo is you pressure the enemy team a lot and you pick people off, and that's kind of it. You just have to be really good at landing shots. There is not that much else to him. Obviously, this is a lot of these cases are oversimplifications, and, you know, when we get to Widowmaker as well, it's going to be a fairly broad oversimplification, but there's obviously positioning and stuff that comes into it, but this is not a super in-depth guide for every hero. They're all oversimplified to some extent, so you have to be really good at landing your shots as Hanzo to win the game as Hanzo, is the basic gist of it, though. You have to be able to hit your shots. And that's how you win the game. You pick people off, you pressure people. So, Junkrat. Junkrat, currently really strong. Used to be really bad, is really strong now. So, how do you win as Junkrat? Well, you probably already know the answer to this question. You do a fucking lot of damage in AoE, and you just constantly apply pressure. Even though he's a defensive hero, he can be played offensively and defensively to exactly the same effect, because the way he controls space doesn't really matter which team he's on, he can still do it. You just shovel damage into the enemy team. You spam all over them. If your accuracy is higher than, like, 10%, goddamn, you're a god. You are just trying to shovel damage into them. And the issue that Junkrat used to have was that he was inherently an inconsistent hero. He was good at doing a lot of damage, but he was very hard at actually getting kills with. This is significantly easier now that, you've always got a mind charge. It's one of those things where you usually want the cooldown ticking, because if you've just got 2 mines constantly, well, one of those mines could be doing something. He's a very mobile hero, because you can do some double mine hop stuff to get around. He threatens this zone. The trap is extraordinarily annoying to certain heroes. And because you always have a mine and cooldown, most flankers cannot really do anything to Junkrat. Like, theoretically, Genji or Tracer would be good, but they just pop out next to you and you're like, nah, fuck off. And you have done over half their health and damage. You've almost killed Tracer. Like, if she's taken any other damage, the mine kills her because it does 120 damage. So, at the bare minimum, she has to recall and then play passively as a result. If it's Genji, he's half dead, so he still has to leave. And you've always got a mine, so it's hard to get flanked. You can also just throw it out as an execute to finish people off, which has given him more consistency, which is a big deal, because that was always his issue. The common issue people have is they will throw the mine out too early and end up inadvertently saving the person that they are trying to kill. If you are throwing the mine at somebody, you need to know it's going to kill them. You're using it as an execute, or you're using it to push them off an edge. If you're throwing it at somebody who it's not going to kill straight up, you run the risk of saving them, which you obviously don't want to do. So, but this is how you win the game as Junkrat. You pressure an area, you do a lot of damage, you get random kills because of your bombs, you finish off people, you kill flankers really good, you do a lot of damage, you break barriers extremely fast. You're the second best hero in the game at breaking barriers. The best is Bastion, obviously. So, that's what you do. And then, because you are doing a lot of AoE damage, even if you're not necessarily killing people, you are doing a lot of damage, so you're building a lot of ult charge. And then, the tire is an extremely consistent way of killing people, because it's way fast, and as a result, it's way hard to kill. It used to be mad slow. It used to basically not have an ultimate. Now it's really fast. It's actually quite hard to break. So you just do a lot of damage. You do a lot of damage. You get as many kills as you can, but you just flood an area with damage. You build up the tire. You send it in. Send it in a little bit of an obscure way. Obviously, you don't just run it straight at them. And you kill people with it. And maybe you get the big game-winning 6-man kill, whatever, with the tire. That's known to happen, but it's one of those things where it builds up extremely fast, so you want to use it as quickly as possible so you can start working on the next one. One of the strongest things about the tire is that it is basically a guaranteed stagger on the enemy team. Even if the enemy team is still regrouping, you can just send it out there and kill the Mercy right as the enemy team is regrouping, and now they have to wait for Mercy again. And then you just buy your team even more time. If you're attacking, that gives you the opportunity to go in. If you're defending, you bought your team free time where they don't have to worry about getting pushed in. So, this Junkrat is a very simple hero to play. He is quite easy to pick up. This is why I think he is actually a balance issue, because he is currently very strong, but he is very easy to play as a result also. So this makes him quite strong. And he is a hero that attracts a lot of salt, because people don't know what to do against Junkrat, and as a result they get really salty. No skill hero, you're just playing him because he's overpowered, blah 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 blah. Junkrat's very prone to this. It is as simple as you flood an area with damage, and you fuck flankers' day with your mine and your trap, and then you send the tire in to kill people, and you just throw the mine out to execute people, you send the tire out to kill people, you do a lot of killing people. You are based around doing a lot of damage. If the game ends and you don't have the gold damage medal, you did something wrong. You're not necessarily going to have the gold eliminations medal, but you should have the gold damage medal, certainly. And that's how you play Junkrat. It's very simple. The things people fuck up are they throw the mine out too early, they save the person they're trying to kill, they don't use the tire as much as they should, they sit on it for an extended periods of time, and then some people just don't think about their trap. Like, the trap is, you want it somewhere, right? Like, a lot of people just don't have their trap out anywhere. Like, put it out somewhere. It's better out somewhere than nowhere. And don't sit on your mine cooldown too long, because if it's just on cooldown constantly, you're not getting any value out of it. You want to get value out of it. Throw those mines out there. Kill people. Do damage. Break barriers. All that jazz. You are doing a lot of damage as Junkrat. You might notice a theme where the defense heroes we're going through them quite a bit faster, because they are basically quite simple heroes to play. They are basically around just like killing people in their zone, which is fairly self-explanatory for a lot of heroes. So, Mei. Mei is currently a hero that is not fantastic, because she's... there's an issue with... when a lot of heroes are very fast, heroes that rely on controlling a zone are not very good. This is why the defense heroes were not very good previously, when Lucio was stronger than Mercy, because that meant that most heroes would breeze through the defense hero zone of control so quickly, the defense heroes did not have time to actually threaten their zone. As a result, they just got rolled over. Now that Mercy is the strongest support in the game, people are harder to kill, people are generally moving slightly slower. As a result, the defense heroes are better than they previously were. The trade-off to that is that defense heroes are not fun to play against. No one likes playing against Bastion and Torbjorn. No one likes playing against Junkrat and Mei, right? They're not fun heroes to play against. But because Mercy is currently strong, they are better than they have previously been. So anyway, though, how do you play Mei? You fuck people's day right up. So, the thing is, what most people do is they don't really think about what they're doing. They think Mei is kind of an automatic hero, and they just kind of like wall things for the sake of it. They use their cooldowns really flippantly. They just run at people trying to freeze them because they want to just, like, do the thing where you wave at the person that you want to... They want to freeze them, wave at them, and then shoot them in the head, you know, that whole business. There's more to it than that. Like, the thing is with the wall, is you're trying to cut people off from the enemy team. A lot of people, they just kind of throw it in an area for no reason. Like, the enemy team... Like, you can be defending and the attacking team's regrouping and they'll just wall off the gate choke point for no reason. The point is to cut people off of the wall and kill them. And that's what Mei is really good at. She's good at facilitating picks. Because you cut somebody off from their team, oh, they're fucking dead. What are they going to do about that? You know, classic examples. Hanamura, Reinhardt walks through the door. Reinhardt is dead now. Somebody walks through the gate, the Numbani, they go upstairs. That person's dead now. That's what Mei's really good at. She's good at facilitating picks. You can also just run in with your freeze, and, like, you're hard to kill, because you're a big, beefy lady. And you've got, self-heal, very annoying cooldown. Most people cannot kill Mei, because you have to be able to do a 250 damage spike, basically, which is very hard for heroes to do. So you're very hard to kill, and you just facilitate picks. And then you throw the ult in, you run up. If you are, fun fact, if you are... throw Blizzard in, you're left-clicking somebody as well. The freezing effects stack, which is why it sometimes seems like you get frozen really fast in Blizzard relative to other times. If she's also left-clicking you, it accelerates the freezing process. So, Mei is basically all about facilitating picks. She does very little damage, but she's very good at getting kills. Isn't that the same thing? No straw man that I've constructed once again to mock. It's not the same thing. Mei should be very high on the eliminations. She should be very low on the damage. Because she doesn't do very much consistent damage, but she does facilitate picks very well. So you're trying to wall people off, you're trying to freeze people, you're trying to peel for your team. If there's a Genji floating around, you're trying to make his life difficult. You're never going to kill a Tracer. Don't even bother. Don't go chasing after the Tracer. She is always going to fuck your day up unless you get a lucky headshot. Fuck, if somebody's diving in, Winston dives in, fuck that dude's day up. You do not have a very large zone of threat, but your zone of threat is extremely threatening. So, if somebody comes into it, you murder them. And that's basically how you play Mei. She's a very straightforward hero. The common mistake people make is that they just use their wall for no reason. It's a very important part of Mei. You have to think like you're Donald Trump. You are building the greatest wall that anyone has ever seen, right? You're all cutting off the enemy team, and you are killing somebody. You're ideally cutting off one person because they guaranteed die. Two people is still fine. You're just trying to cut people off. Don't wall for no reason. Throw the blizzard into people. Go in, freeze those fools, kill those fools that you've frozen. Set up kills, right? Don't focus on. You're not necessarily doing damage. You're trying to kill people, which is not the same thing. There is a distinction, but walls very important. Don't use them flippantly. They are very important. It's basically how you play Mei. She's a very simple hero to play as well, as they all tend to be. So, Torbjorn, the most common I'm throwing now hero, and as you may infer, Torbjorn is quite straightforward to play. Also, you set your turret up somewhere, and ideally it's somewhere not immediately going to get broken. You can do the thing where you, like, put it outside the enemy team's spawn if you're, well, ideally you're defending with Torbjorn, probably not attacking. You can do the thing where you set it up outside the attacking team's spawn and it gets you some ult charge and it annoys people. But, and then you put down another one somewhere, but you want it somewhere where it's going to annoy people, but it's not going to get broken just for free, because if it gets broken for free, it didn't really accomplish anything. Numbani is a traditionally very good map for Torbjorn because you can set it up like in the room on the overlooking the point, ground level. And they can't break the turret before they commit to a fight, so they just have to fight in the turret. And that's extremely annoying, and there's not much they can do about that because you can't break it in that room before committing to a fight, which makes it very obnoxious. And Horizon is also a very popular Torbjorn map because you have the Irisa. You set your turret behind that Irisa, and you have a great time. Torbjorn works extraordinarily well with Irisa because the Irisa can basically pocket your turret, and your turret is extremely annoying. Enemy team has a Tracer. Fuck, Tracer is extraordinarily annoyed by this bad boy because it just hits her. There's nothing she can do about it. Similarly for Genji, and if there's like an Irisa shield in the way, that's very annoying. And then you go around, you throw armor packs on people, and then Torbjorn is a very snowballing hero. If you win the first team fight as Torbjorn, you tend to keep winning the game. Because if you win the first fight, you get a bunch of scrap, and you get to give a bunch of people armor. You've probably got ult advantage because you won the first team fight, and then because everybody has armor, it's harder for you to win the fight. So Torbjorn is a very snowball hero. If you lose the first team fight, you are going to keep losing. But if you win the first team fight, you're going to keep winning as well. He's a very feast or famine hero in this respect. But he snowballs very hard. If you win that first fight, you're going to keep winning. Molten Core is an extremely scary ultimate. It's basically 12 seconds of I can't push now, because the turret is extremely annoying, and Torbjorn is very annoying. Don't be the Torbjorn that just sits there trying to build the turret and you can't build the turret. Okay? Like, you try and build the turret because you don't have one in Molten Core. Alright, if you can see it's not working, if you can see they're stopping you from building the turret while you're in Molten Core, don't focus on that. Just fuck it and go out there and start hitting people. Because Torbjorn himself in Molten Core is very scary. The Fire Dwarf is running around in you with a ton of health. He's got tank health suddenly. And he does a lot of damage in Molten Core as well. Because he's, oh god, like his weapon does a lot of damage and then suddenly you can fire it faster. Oh no. Molten Core is very scary. Don't just sit there trying and failing to build a turret. Because like, you are extremely threatening in Molten Core as well. So, don't be the Torbjorn that uses Molten Core and then sits there trying and failing to build a turret the entire time. Get out there and hit people. And then, you know, you can vary up your turret placement as well, but you'll typically just be putting it behind the Irisa or the Reinhardt in the one place. There isn't much turret movement that goes on with Torbjorn. Unless, like, your turret gets broken or you have to fall back, then you will, but just set your turret down. The advantage, the thing that Torbjorn has that Bastion doesn't have, is that you can go somewhere else, right? Like, you can have your turret in one area, and then you can go off and be scary in another area as well, because, you know, his weapon is a really slow and hard-to-hit projectile, but it does a lot of damage if it hits. It's not unusual for a Torbjorn to kill a Widowmaker, for example. And then he's got a shotgun. Like, you can put your turret down somewhere, leave that to do its thing, and then you see Winston diving on somebody, and you just go over there and kill the Winston, because you also still have a shotgun. So, like, don't just sit there with your turret the entire time. You can go around, you can be an independent person. You are a strong, independent dwarf that don't need no turret. You can go out there and kill people. No big deal. Your ult also charges extremely fast because your turret does guaranteed damage, basically. So, very annoying hero. No one likes playing against Torbjorn. And then you throw armor around and use Snowball. Very straightforward hero to play. As all of the defense heroes really are. So, now let's lumber our way back over here to change to the next hero, which I believe is Widowmaker. She's the only one left, right? Yep, Widowmaker's the only one left. So, do not let Widowmaker's defense category fool you. She is closer to being an offense hero than anything else. People scoff and they laugh and they go, oh, offensive Widowmaker, what are you thinking? She is way better at attacking than she is at defending. Because Widowmaker you're going to see some atrocious play right here. So, Widowmaker is really, she can pick apart a defense really easily, because, you know, the defensive team are kind of huddled together. It's very hard for them to come out and contest the Widowmaker. And you can just sort of float around, like, go between a bunch of points and, like, pick apart the enemy team's defenses. If you are defending as Widowmaker, you are going to be getting dove on, you're going to be having a sad time, because they're going to be moving in quickly, probably, or behind barriers, and they're going to be diving on you. They are likely to have a Winston if they're attacking, a Deva, what have you, Genji, you know. The offense heroes are the ones that really fuck up Widowmaker's day, really. She's very good at picking apart a defense. She is not very good at being a defense personally. She also is quite low presence overall, like, unless she's killing a lot of people. Like, her zone of threat is very scary, of course, but, like, she herself is very soft and fragile, so in terms of her own presence, she's quite low. So, defending, she tends to not be so good. Attacking, you can sit back and you can pick apart the defense, and you've got all the time in the world, because the attacking team is the team that has the initiative, right? You're the one that decides when the fight starts, is the attacking team. The defending team does not always have that luxury. So, she's better at attacking than she is defending, because you can just sort of pick apart a defense, and you've got all the time in the world. and you're less likely to get pressured if you're on the attacking team as Widowmaker. But how do you win the game as Widowmaker? As you might imagine, you kill people and you pick people off, and that's what you do. Worth noting that there's a conception with Widowmaker where people, if you don't show up in the kill feed every 5 seconds, like with a headshot, people will e-bully you and tell you you're bad. The consensus opinion is that the most important stat for Widowmaker is like critical hits. That's what you have to do you have to get headshots to play Widowmaker. No, what you have to do is you have to get kills, which is not the same thing as getting headshots. It can be, obviously, if you get a headshot, you got a kill. That's the same thing. But a fully charged body shot is still 120 damage. That's still a lot of damage. So you don't necessarily have to be popping off, getting headshots all the time, one-shotting people constantly. All that matters is that kills happen. So as long as that's happening, you're doing your job. You don't even have to get the kill. If you do 120 damage and then the Genji comes in and kills that dude, you set that kill up. So you still help make that kill happen. You're still doing your job. Don't think that, you have to be getting headshots constantly. You have to be doing these incredible, hook shot, get 2 headshots before you land, and then 360 no-scope the enemy Widowmaker with your mind. It's not that way. As long as picks are happening and kills are happening, you're doing your job as Widowmaker. And body shots are, way easier to hit. Okay, he says as he misses, but all you have to do is, get a body shot and then get, another decently charged body shot, and you kill the person. That is way easier than getting a headshot, right? And you can just, that's easier to do, right? As long as you're killing people, it's no big deal. As long as kills are happening, it's no big deal. Don't, if you're not constantly in the kill feed getting headshots, your team will call you useless and trash, and they will e-bully you, whatever. If you're playing Widowmaker, you have to be ready to deal with toxicity, because you're the hero that's gonna attract it. Even if you are hard carrying your team, they will not always believe that. The enemy team will know, though. That's the important thing. If you actually hard carry your team, just say GG at the end of the game. The enemy team sure as fuck knows what you did. And that's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter if your team appreciates what you did. You won. The enemy team sure as fuck knows what you did. That's the important thing, right? So anyway, though, you've got to make kills happen, right? Picks have got to happen. That's what Widowmaker's job is. And you're probably attacking. She's better at that than she is at defending, so you've got all the time in the world to make it happen. Not really, but you've got a lot of time to make it happen. And she's one of those, her ult charges very quickly, and then you want to use Infrasight to try and set up a pick, because it's one of those things that makes it way easier to get a pick, because now, I can track this person around a wall, and then as soon as they come into sight, I kill them, right? And building on that, Venom Mine is essentially guaranteed ult charge, it's free ult charge because it's basically guaranteed damage. He said as he threw it not quite far enough to trigger? No, it did. Okay. There's the line of thought where you're meant to use Venom Mine to guard your position. Here's the thing, you got a pair of headphones on, surround sound hearing. You can hear the person coming up behind you, right? You very rarely even get to just sit in one location for that long. You are usually moving around more frequently than that. It's better to just chuck Venom Mine into the enemy team, because it'll do a bunch of damage to everybody, thereby making it easier for picks to happen, because, they just took a bunch of guaranteed damage from Venom Mine, which makes it easier for you to kill them, it makes it easier for your team to kill them, and bare minimum, it gave you ult charge, which will eventually help you kill people as well. Common mistake Widowmaker players make is they basically position too aggressively. You need hookshot off cooldown to survive things coming for you. If you do not have hookshot, and a Genji comes to get you, or a Winston comes to get you, you die. So you have to think very carefully about moving forward, right? Because if you're moving forward, you are likely to use hookshot when you're doing it. Now, it's not an incredibly long cooldown, it's 8 seconds. That's only 2 seconds longer than Winston's jump, which is a very strong movement ability. But you have to think about moving forward, because if you get caught with hookshot on cooldown, you will die. There's not much you can do about it, other than just headshot the person and kill them. But even a Winston, that doesn't kill the person, right? There's more to it than that. So you have to think. You have to, like, weigh up what... You have to look at the enemy team, and you have to weigh up the threat of going forward right now. Like, I can move forward into a better, more aggressive position, but what are the chances that if I do that, the Winston, the Genji, whatever is about to jump on me? If you think it's a very high chance that that's going to happen, don't do it. Just play more passively until you think the risk is lowered, and then you go forward. Very common, people just like hookshot around without thinking about it, like, now I'm in a more aggressive position. Oh no, now Winston has jumped on me and my hook is on cooldown and he has killed me. Like, you have to think about it before you move forward. Make sure when you hookshot forward, you're not going to get pressured while it's on cooldown, because if you get pressured while it's on cooldown, you will die. But the basic thing with Widowmaker is just picks have to happen. But, like, you don't don't look at, like, oh, I've gotten, like, 3 headshots this game, I'm doing terrible. Now, if you look at your eliminations and you see that you've gotten, like, 20 eliminations, but only 3 headshots, it doesn't matter, right? Like, as long as you're killing, as long as kills are happening, that's all that matters. Adjust your expectations when you're playing Widowmaker, because very few people are gonna be the gods that just headshot people over and over and over again and are constantly, like, in the kill feed, just, like, decimating their team, the enemy team. Most people who are good at Widowmaker are just gonna be, like, doing this kind of thing, where they, like, set up kills, and, like, as long as a kill happens, that's all that really matters, right? Yeah, you have, like, great potential to, like, pop off and kill, like, 20 people back to back to back to back to back and have these incredible play of the game moments, but, like, what's gonna get you your mileage on the hero is just, like, pecking at people, pressuring people, and zoning people. Because don't forget, like, Widowmaker's line of sight is still extremely threatening because she can one-shot you. Even if the Widowmaker is really bad, like, you don't ever still just stand out in her line of sight because you know that, like, the chances of dying are still there. She can still one-shot you. So, just, like, sit back, zone people, they have to stay out of your line of sight or risk death, and you just, like, try and set kills up. Do not expect to constantly have these games where, these highlight games where you get 20 headshots and you hard carry the game. That's not going to be what happens. As long as kills are happening, as long as you are contributing to kills happening, that's all that actually matters. And if your team is gonna evil you because you're playing Widowmaker, but, like, if you see that kills are happening and you are contributing to kills, that's all that actually matters. Okay? Fuck them. You know what you're doing. The enemy team knows what you're doing. If your team don't know what's happening, fuck them. Right? As long as kills are happening and you are contributing to them, that's all that matters. So we are now into the tanks. So let's talk about Deva. So Deva is one of the dive tanks in the game. The advantage that Deva has over Winston is that she does more damage than Winston. Because they both fulfill a similar role. So they dive on people, they pressure defenders, they... hold on one moment. I've been talking for an hour and a half, and we're likely to go for another hour and a half, you know? Well, probably not. These offense heroes are the ones that have the most to talk about, really. So, Deva does a similar thing to Winston, where you are going in and you are pressuring people and you're disrupting people, right? You used to be able to play Deva basically like a shield tank. That doesn't work anymore. You now have to go and kill people. She is better at killing people than Winston is because her weapons do more damage, right? And she does a lot of burst damage as well, because if you fly up to somebody, left-clicking, and you do that, that's like a lot of damage. It's not uncommon for somebody to suddenly die to a Deva because they flew at her, right? Or she flew at them, rather. So you do basically the same thing. If there are high ground defenders, you are the one that goes to deal with them as Deva. And you have a higher potential chance of killing them. Like, if a Winston jumps on a soldier, the soldier will not die to Winston, barring outside interference, right? The Deva can kill the soldier. She is not necessarily likely to. Like, if you're playing soldier and a Deva dives on you, I recommend you just put the biotic field down and fight the Deva, because she is still not likely to kill you unless she is incredibly good, but you can kill the soldier as Deva, right? Like, Winston can't. Like, he just doesn't do enough damage. Deva can. So that's what you have. You're trying to kill people more than Winston is, right? Winston is mostly about disruption. If you kill somebody, that's a bonus, right? Like, when you jump in as Winston, you're disrupting people, buying time for your team. Deva, you can expect to kill people when you dive in, because you do more damage. And you just have higher kill pressure. So, but you're doing largely the same thing that Winston is. Winston has a bodyguarding element to him, where you can kill flankers like Genji very consistently. Deva does not have that element, right? Like, she can help her people being flanked. Like, yeah, you can try and kill the Genji, but, like, you're not as scary to the Genji as Winston is, because you have to hit the Genji. The Winston will hit the Genji. As a result, Deva is less good at bodyguarding. She is much more aggressive than Winston is. She is one of the most aggressive tanks, because she can kill people. She goes in there, she fights people, she kills people, right? And then the other part of playing Deva, though, is that because Defense Matrix is very strong at blocking certain ultimates, you have the obligation to stop these people, right? Because all tanks fundamentally are about denying the enemy team damage and controlling space. Deva denies them damage and controls space by going in there, distracting people, and, like, being big and hard to kill herself. So you go in and do the same thing that Winston does, but you also deny them damage with Defense Matrix, because it blocks a lot of shit. Like, if there's a Farah, you can make the Farah's day really difficult by eating a bunch of rockets, and you can eat Barrage. You do have to keep track of certain heroes, because you have the obligation to stop their ultimate. You have to know what Farah's up to. If you think she's getting in position to use Barrage, you have to be ready for it. And if you hear Soldier start using Tac Visor, you gotta stop that. And even, like, Defense Matrix does not last long enough to completely no-sell certain ultimates anymore. Like, you used to be able to just eat all of the Tac Visor. You can't do that anymore. So, when you see the Soldier using it, you get in his face, right? Because, don't forget, you're still big as well, right? Like, your mech is huge and hard to kill. So, Defense Matrix won't block all of Tac Visor, but then you get in his face, and he can't shoot around you, right? Like, he has to try and get around you somehow. So you keep eating his Tac Visor, and you probably eat, like, at least half of it, if not the entire thing, as long as you get in the dude's face as well. So you do the same thing Winston does, where you go in and you disrupt people. If there's a high ground defender, you gotta go in and be the one to stop that. You gotta go disrupt people. You're trying to kill people. You're trying to pressure the backline. And then you're keeping track of certain heroes so you can completely eat their ultimates and just deny it. Like, fucking Reaper drops down right next to you. You won't eat all of Death Blossom, but you can eat up to 2 seconds of it, which is hopefully enough time for your Mercy to get out of the way. You know, gives people time to react, stuff like that. And then, Self-Destruct is a very good zoning ultimate. Its offensive capabilities are very limited, because it takes a long time to go off, but it is very good at defending. Because you hear the Lucio drop the beat, suddenly, oh, fuck, I want to go in with the sound barrier, but now fucking Self-Destruct is in the way, so I can't, and now I have to. It really kills their aggression, right? Genji uses Dragon Blade, you just ult, and then he has to waste time on his Dragon Blade hiding from the Self-Destruct before he can come out and actually use Dragon Blade. So you buy your team time, you waste time off of his very scary ultimate, things like that. It's very good at zoning, it's not very good at offensive capability, it's not very good offensively. The best offensive use, in my mind, for Self-Destruct is when you're trying to coordinate with your team. Like, you've got a Reinhardt and he's got Earth Shatter. You've got Soldier and he's got Tac Visor, right? You can throw Self-Destruct on the other side of the enemy team, and they have to look at both, right? Like, if they look back at Self-Destruct, they get Earth Shattered. If they look back, they get Tac Visored, right? You split their focus between two threatening places. Your ult is not very threatening by itself, but they still have to pay attention to it. So then if another very scary ultimate is happening at the same time, it makes it very difficult to play around that. And that's the best offensive use for Self-Destruct. Just like lobbing it in at people, almost never works. Best used for zoning or facilitating somebody else's ultimate. Another very important thing about Deva, right, is Deva is she's a very good source of pressure because she can effectively respawn very quickly. Because this is how I encourage you to think about Deva's mech, right? When you lose your mech, you have effectively died because you are not really a hero anymore. You're 150 health, no abilities, very easy to kill. Can't really do very much, right? You can do damage, but you're easy to kill. So you have effectively died when you lose your mech. You're not Deva anymore. You're now Baby Deva, Zero Suit Samus, whatever you want to call yourself. The benefit of this is call mech charges very quickly. So when you lose your mech, if you just back up and shoot people for a little bit, you build up call mech, you get back in your mech. As long as you get back in your mech in a reasonable period of time, you've effectively respawned very fast, because it takes you, when you die, it takes you 10 seconds to respawn, plus however long it takes you to get back to where the front line is, right? Which, depending on the map, can be just like 1 or 2 seconds, or it can be like 10 or 15 seconds in the most extreme examples, right? So respawning can actually take you like 20 seconds on average. But if you lose your mech, get your mech back in like 7 seconds, say, which is a fairly reasonable amount of time, you have saved 13 seconds on your respawn. Which is insane, right? Like, that's very strong. That's just, you are pressuring the enemy team so much more as a result of that. Whereas what people tend to do is they just keep playing like they're a tank when they lose their mech, right? Which you're not. And then think about it this way. We've established you die when you lose your mech, basically. So if you're walking around as Baby Deva for like 5 seconds, and then you die, you've just added 5 seconds to your respawn instead, because you've spent 5 seconds walking around essentially dead, then you actually died, and then you had to go through like the 20-second respawn period, which actually became 25 seconds. So, think of it that way. You can apply a lot of pressure. Even if you lose your mech, you can respawn very quickly, as long as you build up your mech in a reasonable period of time. Even if it takes you like 15 seconds to build up a call mech, you have still probably saved time on average, because most maps, it takes a reasonable amount of time to get back to the front line. Like, King's Row, first checkpoint, you're attacking. Yeah, you come out the door, you're back, that's like 2 seconds. But most maps, it's going to take you a few, like, 5 to 10 seconds to get back, so call mech is essentially respawning a lot faster, so be careful that you don't make your respawn take longer. So Irisa is one of the 2 shield tanks in the game, sharing the place with Reinhardt. The principal difference between Reinhardt and Irisa is that Reinhardt has a way better shield, basically. Irisa herself is lower presence than Reinhardt is, because Irisa herself is not that scary. Yes, you can drill into somebody's head real good and kill them, but, like, that's dependent on them letting you do that, basically. Right? I played Reinhardt for a very long period of time, and I can tell you that Reinhardt is a lot better at protecting his team than Irisa is. Like, the Irisa's sitting there defending, and the argument, like, I had such an argument with somebody about this. The argument they made was that, like, oh, Irisa's gonna break Reinhardt's barrier first because she does damage to the barrier when Reinhardt doesn't. The issue with that is that, like, yeah, Irisa does damage to the shield, but, like, once you get to Irisa, it's over, right? Like, that's the thing. When you get to Reinhardt, he hits you, and he will hit you, and it will hurt, and he's very scary because Earthshatter is a scary ultimate. Irisa doesn't have that. She's a very supportive hero by nature. She is best when paired with a Reinhardt, as far as I'm concerned, but she's lower presence than Reinhardt. What Irisa's really good at is she's good at building a bunker around her backline, because her shield can't be easily moved around, right? Like, you put it somewhere, it's cooldown gated. You can't just move it around freely like Reinhardt's can. So it favors a more static composition. This is why she's also better at defending. You can attack as Irisa, I'm not saying you can't, but she's better at defending by nature, because she favors static defenders. What the best case scenario for Irisa is, let's use Numbani as the example, first checkpoint, because I think it's the clearest example. First checkpoint Numbani, the best thing the defending team can do, if they have like a soldier or a Torbjorn, is sit on the opposite balcony to the staircase, right? And then you put your shield in front of the soldier on that high ground, or that Torbjorn, whatever you got. Fuck, it's hard to kill that dude now. Like, the soldier is sat behind the barrier, you're up there with him. The way you get rid of the soldier on that map is you send a dive tank like Winston up there to get him off, or Genji up there. Suddenly he's got a barrier around him, Irisa's sat next to him. Fuck, what do you do about that, right? It's really hard. She also works really well with heroes like Torbjorn and Bastion, as we covered earlier, because they are static defenders, of course, as well. So you build the bunker around them, you help them, you know, you put the shield in front of them, you pocket them, essentially, you help peel people off of them, blah, 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 blah. She's very good at she's better at tanking with the backline. Because Irisa herself is very low presence, right? She will lose a fight to basically every other tank, except Winston. Or Zarya if she's low charge. The caveat with Zarya is you always win if she's low charge. You always lose if she's high charge, right? Because fuck, high charge Zarya is scary. But like, Irisa straight up against, Reinhardt, she loses. Unless, like, the Reinhardt is for some reason 1v1ing Irisa and she's full health, in which case, yeah, she's gonna kill him, but like, the game is not that simple, right? Reinhardt walks up to you with his team and then he beats you to death, right? She loses, she gets killed by Roadhog. She can kill Deva, but hopefully the Deva's got some fucking discretion and isn't just diving on the Irisa with no reason at all. She can kill Winston. She can kill Zarya if she's low charge. Irisa versus Irisa, fuck, right? Like, that's a nonsense matchup right there. But she can fight Winston. The thing, she's still not great at killing Winston, because Winston just gets to leave, usually. But, she's low presence compared to the other, like, main tanks, basically. Like, Reinhardt walks up to the Irisa with his team. If Arisa's trying to be Reinhardt, and the other team has a Reinhardt, but the Irisa's team doesn't, the Reinhardt walks up to the Irisa and beats the Irisa to death with his team, right? Because the Irisa's up here, Irisa's got no low presence compared to Reinhardt. You just walk your team up to them, kill the Irisa. Irisa is very slow, she's very immobile, so if she is caught out of position, she dies. For this reason as well, she is usually better being further back. Because if you get caught out in no man's land, you die. The best case scenario for Irisa is you sit back with your backline, you build a bunker around them, you protect them. It makes it very hard for them to die. It's very simple. If your soldier has a shield, their soldier doesn't have a shield, your soldier wins by default because he can't lose, that kind of thing, right? And then if it's like Torbjorn Bastion, it's just very hard to get through the shields because you have to expose yourself to those heroes to break the shield. And that's very scary. Then you break the shield before you can start hitting them, but then, like, the shield's gonna be back up before too long. She's very good at protecting backline, building a bunker around them, helping peel for them, blah, 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 blah. She's very supportive by nature. She has lower presence than Reinhardt. She doesn't do the same thing as him. She's better at backline guarding than she is being the front line. She's a very weak front line, very low presence hero, unless the enemy team just kind of kill themselves on her. Which can always happen, but not necessarily the most consistent thing. So, sit with your soldier, your Torbjorn, your Bastion, build a bunker around them, protect them from flankers, blah, 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 blah. You just have a good time. If you're attacking, you can attack, you just have to be quite patient with how you do it. If you have a payload, obviously you just sit on the payload and have a great time, but, if you are attacking like a capture point, you can still play Irisa. You just have to be patient because you have to move up with your shield's cooldown, basically. What people will do is they'll put the barrier down, then be like, alright, let's go. No, you can't do that. You've got to wait. You've got to put the barrier down, and you've got to wait for the barrier to be up again, and then advance with the barrier again. And that's how you move in as Irisa. You have to be patient. But you can do it. You can advance in with Irisa. It's just, you have to be patient. But that's basically what you do with Irisa. You tank from the back line, and protect your static defenders, protect your soldier, defend the high ground, blah, blah, blah. Have a great time. Put down your ultimate as soon in teamfight as possible. This is a common question. When do I use my ultimate as Irisa? You want to use it as soon as possible. It's a support ultimate. It's not an aggressive ultimate, right? You can't use it to kill people. It helps kill people, but you can't use it to kill people. You want as many people to benefit from it as possible, so you put it down right at the start of the team fight, when your team are most likely to use their ultimates, and most people are going to be alive to benefit from it as long as possible. You just want as many people to benefit from it as long as possible, so right at the start of the team fight. Ideally out of line of sight. Like, if you're defending with your backline, you can usually just poke around a corner, put it down, it'll still hit your Bastion, your soldier, yourself, whatever, and they can't really break it, you know? That kind of thing. But that's basically what you do with Irisa. You sit with your backline, you make it really hard for them to die. You make it really hard to kill that soldier, that Bastion, that Torbjorn, whatever. So now Reinhardt. Reinhardt is the other shield tank. We kind of already talked about him, but... So, Reinhardt, I always think of him as being basically like a chain chomp, where you have an extremely threatening zone, but it's very small, and you're not really allowed to hit people that often, right? Like, sit and you look scary, you look menacingly at the enemy team, and then when they come into your zone, you fuck them up, because you do, like, damage, right? Like, you do a lot of damage. But other than that, you just kind of look at them. So, Reinhardt is the one who drives the bus, right? Like, you have got to get your team to the objective. If you're defending, it's way easy, because you're already at the objective. You don't have to get them there. But, if you're attacking, you have to get your team there. So, the thing Reinhardt has is his shield is the best in the game. It is the highest health, it is the most easily maneuverable, right? It takes longer to recharge than Irisa's does, but at the same time, the trade-off is it's higher health base, and it's more easily maneuvered, so, as well as being bigger. So, you get, the thing Reinhardt does is it gives his team uncontested lines of sight. And you can just walk your team in, right? Like, it's very easy. You can just walk your team in, and they can't get damaged while they're walking in. There's usually more to it than that, but that's the basic idea. The issue Reinhardt players have is they want to do damage, because it feels good, right? Like, you get in there, you start hitting, you pin a man, it feels good. Oh, that did a lot of damage. It felt great. You are very rarely allowed to actually do damage to people. Even in a team fight, if you can swing at people, quite often it's usually better to just be holding your shield. The shield is the thing that's strong about Reinhardt, right? And again, all tank heroes are about controlling space and denying the enemy team damage. You control space with your threatening presence and your shield, and you deny them damage with your shield. This is how I always describe it. Think about it this way. You're playing Reinhardt, you've got a soldier with you. You hold your shield up in front of the soldier. The enemy team, just a soldier. What most people will do in this kind of matchup is they'll run forward and try and hit the soldier. What you should do is just hold your shield up for your soldier, right? Because then your soldier can't lose the fight because he can't take damage. The enemy soldier, he hasn't got a Reinhardt. He's just out in the open. He's going to lose by default because he can't damage your soldier. Most people will go up and try to hit him. You shouldn't do that. You don't have to do it. He's a great hero if you're lazy. You're just like, oh, I'm just going to hold my shield up and I'm going to let my DPS do all the work for me instead. So easy. He's a great hero if you're a lazy bastard like me. So, hold on. Oh, my throat rebels. This is what happens when you were speaking basically continuously for almost 2 hours. So, that's what you do as Reinhardt. You give your team uncontested line of sight, you walk them in, and the other way, then this is what you do. You just block damage for your team. That's like what Reinhardt is really good at. Yeah, he does damage, but like you're very rarely in a position you're able to actually do damage. Common issues for Reinhardt players is they want to do damage. We already talked about that one. Block for your team. That's what you're trying to do. That's what's really strong about Reinhardt. If you've got gold damage and gold eliminations, the issue is probably not that your DPS are bad, it's probably that you're not making any space for your DPS and you're trying to play like a DPS. So, other common issues is Reinhardt's Fire Strike, that people just continuously use it. A big part of playing Reinhardt is playing against other Reinhardts, where you're basically trying to slip your Earth Shatter past the other Reinhardt. If you're Fire Striking continuously, that just makes it easier for it, because if you have your Earth Shatter and you see the enemy Reinhardt's Fire Striking constantly, you just watch him, and you think, as soon as I see him do it, as soon as you see him start Fire Striking, you just use Earth Shatter. Just use Fire Strike to build up your ultimate. That's basically what it's for, because every time it hits somebody, oh, look at that, some beefy ult charge, and you just keep doing that over and over and over again until you have Earth Shatter. You stop using Fire Strike once you have Earth Shatter. If you think you can kill someone with Fire Strike, by all means, go for it. But once you have Earth Shatter, stop using Fire Strike, because it's for building it. And if they have a Reinhardt, they can slip it past you when you're doing that. But on a more base level, if you Earth Shatter the enemy team, you'll want to have Fire Strike to kill people more easily, basically. You'll Earth Shatter them, Fire Strike through them, and start hitting, blah, 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 blah. Other issue Reinhardt players have is they love the charge button. This always sounds like an exaggeration, but I swear to you it is not. Most Reinhardt players would see a significant improvement in performance if they charged 80% less. There are very few situations in which you should be charging. And they are basically, the most common reason is to countercharge the other Reinhardt. You see him coming at you, you should countercharge it. Even if you can get out of the way, you should usually countercharge it, because think about it. You get out of the way, and Reinhardt charges past you. Oh no, Mercy got pinned. Oh god, that's so much worse. So it's usually better to countercharge it anyway. And then also, if he's charging badly, and you countercharge him in front of your team, then you're right next to your team, he's right next to your team, he'll die, you won't. Easy money. Even if you can get out of the way, you should still countercharge it because you don't know if he's going to hit somebody behind you. And also, even if he doesn't hit anybody else, he can end up behind your team, turn around, Earth Shatter your team, because suddenly you're on the wrong side of the team to block that. Just countercharge the other Reinhardt. The other reason to use charge is to punish people for being in bad positions, or to cancel certain ultimates, though that's very rare to be able to do. For example, we see that the enemy Reinhardt is slowly inching his way forward, and he just, like, gets a little bit too close, right? He just, like, gets too far away from his team, and then we just charge really quickly and pin him against the wall. This is the key as well. You want your charge to be as short as possible, because you don't want the enemy team to have much time to react to you. You don't want to go across the entire map, because that's really easy to react to and get out of the way, or crowd control you, all these things. Don't let that happen. Just short charges to punish people for being out of position, or to try and kill somebody really quickly, right? But charge very, very little. You have to, before you charge, think to yourself, why am I charging? And if you can't give yourself a very good answer, don't charge. There are very few reasons you should be charging. But the important thing is just to remember, you're not here to do damage. You're here to make sure that your DPS can do damage uncontested. And if somebody gets close to you, yeah, fuck them up. But, like, it's very rare. Like, you are meant to be protecting your team more than anything else. You are the bodyguard of the game, right? You are very strictly a bodyguard. Low mobility, big shield, melee range. You're a very good bodyguard. You have a very threatening ultimate. Guard your team. Make sure they don't take damage. Earth Shatter the enemy team. Win the game. Easy money. So, Roadhog. Roadhog is not traditionally thought of as being a tank. He's usually thought of as just being a DPS that has a lot of hit points. Roadhog is a tank because he has a very threatening zone of threat, right? His zone of threat is like a big red circle, very scary. Because as soon as you see Roadhog, you think to yourself, oh god, if I get hooked, I'm very likely to die. So, basically, the way Roadhog controls space is that he's got this very threatening zone, whereas you know if you come into range, he might hook you and you might die, so you have to be careful. Roadhog doesn't have a shield. He benefits greatly from being with a shield tank like Reinhardt, because you can sit behind the Reinhardt, and then Reinhardt's very threatening melee range and uncontested line of sight synergizes very well with you because you have a very threatening long range and can bring people into the melee range. It's scary to advance into the Reinhardt because of Earth Shatter and your hook. Suddenly, he works very well with shield tanks. Because he can't really block much damage, but his zone of threat is very, very scary. So, people have to be afraid of you. It is worth remembering that the threat of the hook itself can often be scarier than the hook itself. Because imagine that your backline is getting heckled by a tracer, so you're trying to make life difficult for the tracer. If you go for a hook on the tracer that is very unlikely to hit, you will miss your hook, and then the tracer will go, he's not scary anymore because the hook is now on cooldown for 8 seconds, and then the tracer can continue to heckle your Mercy free of threat, basically. Because once your hook is on cooldown, you're not scary anymore. Suddenly your zone of threat is only basically point blank. So if you're trying to zone off a flanker, just remember that, like, you shouldn't hook unless you're really sure you're going to hook them. Because if the Genji or the Tracer sees you hook, and you miss them, you're not scary anymore, and they'll resume bullying the person. Most people, they just throw the hook out willy-nilly all the time, constantly trying to hook people. You want to make sure that every hook you throw is likely to convert into a kill. Or even if they get away, like, you hooking somebody, they're likely to die. You're not just hooking for the sake of hooking, right? You are trying to convert it into something. You're trying to convert it into a pick, basically. If you throw it out constantly, people are less scared of you on average, because when they see your hook if your hook is constantly on cooldown and they see you just missing all the time, you spend way less time being scary. But basically that's how you control space as Roadhog. You can still block damage as well. Don't forget Roadhog's a big beefy boy still. So if you see that, for argument's sake, the enemy soldier is using Tac Visor, and you're right next to Mercy, get between the Mercy and the Tac Visor. Just, like, look at the Mercy if you have to line it up. Like, block, because he can't shoot past you. He's got to shoot you. If you're between him and the Mercy, you got to take a breather. You're hard to kill because you got damage reduction, heal 300 HP. You can still block for people, and you can still do that. Just remember that you can do that as well, because people don't think about it, but, like, you are still a tank. You are still meant to be protecting people at the end of the day. And then, of course, hard crowd control, very good at denying certain ultimates, like see Reaper Wraith forming in. He's going to use Death Blossom, you hook him, stop it, blah, blah, blah. Whole Hog is one of the better defensive ultimates in the game, because it is basically, you decide that you don't want to have this team fight anymore, and you just call the whole thing off. Because you just push the whole enemy team away, and there's not much they can do about it. You see Genji come in with Dragon Blade, I'd rather you didn't. Even if he starts just, like, deflecting Whole Hog back at you, that's time he wastes on Dragon Blade, which is still a big deal. And it's gonna run out eventually. Then you're gonna start pushing him away again. They start coming in with Sound Barrier? Nah. Transcendence? Nah. You just get to tell them no. Like, you just decide that you're gonna call off the whole team fight. You'd rather not have it. And it's very hard for them to stop that, unless they can hard crowd control you in turn. There's not anything they can actually do to stop you. So, you just call the whole team fight off if you don't want to have it. So, that's what Roadhog does. He picks people off, and he has his very threatening zone that he controls people with. Controls the enemy team with, basically. So Winston, we already kind of talked about him when we talked about Deva. He's basically trying to do the same thing as Deva, where you dive on the high ground defenders and you fuck their day up. You try to, if nothing else, you try to get them off the high ground, right? Very important thing people forget with playing Winston is, and this is true of any hero where you apply pressure, if you are applying pressure, it doesn't matter how much pressure you're applying to the enemy team. If you die, all pressure is immediately relieved because you are no longer there to apply it. So, very important, if you are diving in as Winston, you have to be really sure you're not going to die, because he's a guerrilla. Appropriately enough, he uses guerrilla warfare. You are unlikely to kill somebody, especially in like a soldier, because you do fairly low damage. The idea is you go in, you put the shield on them, and you fuck with them. And then as soon as you think that you might die, or the enemy team are turning their attention onto you, you just leave. Right, you just leave the fight suddenly, and then you wait for your resources to be back up again, and then you go back in. It's very important you don't die, because as soon as you die, your team are fighting a man down. Doesn't matter if you're applying pressure, you're not applying it anymore, which is a detriment for your team, because now they're at a numbers disadvantage, probably. Because you probably didn't kill somebody as Winston. You can. Obviously, that's the ideal circumstance, but it's a bonus more than anything else. So, when you jump in, it's a very common mistake. People, Winston, they'll walk up into, like, the choke point, they'll put their bubble in the choke point, waste of time. It's only 600 health. It does nothing in a choke point. It breaks instantly. You need the bubble to go in and fight people. Very common mistake. People put the bubble down. They don't want to wait for the bubble to be off cooldown, and then they jump on the soldier, and then they die because the entire enemy team just focuses them. If you are jumping in and you do not have your bubble up currently, you need a very good reason to be doing that. Because if you don't have your bubble, you are extremely likely to die, because Winston is actually a very soft tank. He only has 500 health, and very little of it is armor. So, if you have Primal Rage, you've got a giant buffer, sure. But if you don't, like, your bubble is all you've got. Winston needs to have his resources to actually apply pressure, because if you just jump in without your bubble, you die. You are too soft to actually do that. So, if you're jumping in without your bubble, be very careful. Think very carefully about jumping in without your bubble, because you do need it. And then, when you've got Primal Rage, that's also a huge buffer. You can use that as well. If the enemy team has hard crowd control, be sure to use it a little bit earlier than you think you need to, because it's very common to get flashbanged and then die before you can use Primal Rage. The benefit of it, of course, is also that it's a giant heal. So, you want to use it as when you're low health, because then you benefit from more of the ultimate's value. A lot of people, I see them, they just jump in and then they like use Primal Rage mid-jump. That's like missing out on part of the point. Part of the point is that you drop low, use it to heal up to full, and then you just get more value out of the ultimate. And if they got hard crouch control, you need to use it a little bit earlier because you need to account for that, but the idea is to use it to heal, because you're just basically trying to disrupt people, right? Like, you need your bubble because otherwise you're too soft. You jump in, you put your bubble down, hard to kill you suddenly. You might not kill them, but that's okay. You're going to fuck with them. You're going to distract the enemy team. If somebody's diving in with you, they'll help you kill the person. If there's a Genji with you, then suddenly you are very likely to kill the person, actually. Or Farah, anything like that. And yeah, you pressure people, you pressure their backline, high ground defenders, you try to avoid fighting their front line as much as possible because they are the people you're bad at fighting. You do very little damage, and armor is best against people who do a little bit of damage over a long period of time, because the damage reduction for armor is quite low, so if the person already does low damage, it just is way more impactful. Reducing 5 damage off of Pulse Bomb is not much, whereas reducing 5 damage off something that only does 10 damage is half the damage. So that's a big deal. The other part of playing Winston is that he does have a bodyguarding aspect because he's good at countering flankers. Tracer and Genji predominantly. You don't counter them in the same way. For example, a Genji you can kill. A Tracer you are extremely unlikely to kill. Straight, like, assuming equal skill, the Tracer will win the fight 10 times out of 10. But Genji you can kill. The reason you counter Tracer is you zone the person, because you still will do guaranteed damage to the Tracer, which makes the Tracer scared to approach the Mercy, because you'll kill her if she fucks it up, right? You are going to kill the Tracer. No questions asked, eventually, anyway. Genji you can kill, but you're basically trying to zone them off. Important to remember that if you are picking Winston to counter these people, you do have to actually do that. Because there is a common issue where people will pick Winston like, oh fuck, Genji's fucking my team up, I'm going to pick Winston to counter them. And then they just keep diving into the enemy team. You can't do that. If you're picking Winston to actually protect your team from Genji, you need to sit with your team. You have to actually sit with your backline. And at times you're going to feel not productive as a result of that. But like, if Genji is the reason your team is losing because he's killing your backline, you just have to sit with them. And you protect them. And you look at the Genji like, don't you even think about it, buddy. And that will, even if you aren't necessarily doing very consistent damage because you're sitting with your backline protecting them, if you're zoning the Genji off, if the Genji was the reason you were losing, you being with your backline is the best thing you can possibly do. You're not going to feel always like you're being very productive, but if you're zoning the Genji, you are being productive. You just have to actually do that. But that's basically what Winston does. Largely the same thing as Deva, but you have a bodyguarding component that Deva doesn't have. And you have to be more cautious. Deva has a big mech buffer, Winston doesn't. So, Zarya is basically the off-tank of the game. She is she has great difficulty functioning as a solo tank because it's very difficult to build charge. The main issue Zarya players have is that they are bad at building up charge, and that makes all other aspects of Zarya difficult, because she is balanced around the fact that she's balanced around having charge, right? Low charge Zarya does so little damage, it's a joke. Zarya is based around having high damage. She's very low presence, she's quite soft, 400 health, no armor, quite easy to kill. She has her own shield, obviously, which helps, but low presence herself, especially when low charge. She needs another tank with her. She is the off-tank, though. You are always with somebody. What you do as Zarya in the game depends on what your team needs. Because if your team is being bullied by flankers like Genji, you now facilitate the same role as Winston. You go back and you protect the backline. You don't expect the Reinhardt to come back and protect the backline, no. If you see your backline getting bullied around, it is your job as Zarya to go and help them. So, but if your backline isn't getting bullied around, you just sit around with the front line and make like the Reinhardt's job, the Winston's job, whatever, you make their job easier. You're always supporting someone, because that's what Zarya is based entirely around. Do not pick Zarya as a solo tank. You will be very sad. You will find you do not have enough presence to fight people off, even if you are high charge constantly. Like, you just personally do not control space well enough to solo tank, on top of it being very hard to generate charge. Very simple advice that usually helps people with playing Zarya is people tend to use their bubbles predictively rather than reactively, and that's very bad, because what people tend to do is they go, oh, that person's about to take damage, oh, I'm about to take damage, and then they use their bubble early, and then what usually happens is the person doesn't take any damage at all, and you gain no charge as a result, because if the person was about to start shooting, they usually just go, oh, wait, okay, now I start shooting. If you wait until you or the person have already started taking damage, it's harder to stop yourself shooting once you've already started. There's that. But just baseline as well. The person will not react the frame the bubble appears on the person, right? They aren't going to just see the bubble and then immediately stop firing. You're always going to get some charge, even if they do stop themselves from shooting, because they're going to shoot it at least a little bit, so you'll always get some charge. And everything about Zarya is made easier by having charge, because you need to be high charge to actually create space, because the way Zarya creates space is with her own damage. Because she blocks damage, obviously, with her bubbles, but the way she creates space is by being scary. The Genji jumps in your backline, and you're walking around with like 60% charge, and you're just like, get the fuck out of here, Genji. And he's like, shit, that hurts. Right? Like, that you have to be high charge to really do much as Zarya. Also, her ultimate is extremely strong, but it takes a long time to charge up. This is easier if you are high charge, because you're doing a lot of damage to people, and it's building very quickly. So, being high charge is very important, and that's the biggest skill for Zarya, is getting high charge consistently. Everything else comes as a result of that. So just focus, use your bubbles reactively rather than predictively. You'll always get some charge, and that will generally make it easier. With yourself, it's a little easier, because you can bubble yourself, walk in front of another person's line of fire, but like, if you're bubbling someone else, you usually need to be a little bit more cautious. But that's really how you play Zarya. You get high charge, and then, this is very simple, you play passively when you have low charge, and you play aggressively when you have high charge. Because when you have high charge, you are basically the best hero in the game. But when you're low charge, you do actually nothing. So this is very important that you build charge. And usually the issue is people use it predictively, and they just end up not building any charge. This is obviously an oversimplification as well. A lot of playing Zarya is game sense. She's quite low mechanically. She's all about game sense, basically. And that is basically something you build up with experience more than anything else, but just remember, you're always with somebody, you're always helping your backline, you're always helping your front line, you're always using your bubbles to help them. That's helping you because it's generating charge, and then because you're a high charge, it's making all other aspects of playing you easier. And then, obviously, the way you win, you do that. Carries even the most uncoordinated of teams. Very important, don't use it alone. So, very much like Sombra's Imp, you need your team to be with you. Otherwise it does nothing. So we have moved on to the last category now. We are in the supports. So, Ana. Ana is a very popular support, and generally regarded as being the hardest support to play, though I think Moira is harder to play than Ana. So the thing with Ana is that she is very easy to kill if you get on her. She is very countered by Winston, because you can't trank Winston very reliably because of his bubble. Or even grenade him very reliably. So, Ana has to sit quite far back to be safe, basically. She is a sniper, she can sit very far back. Interesting thing to note, when you are unscoped, your weapon is projectile. When you are scoped, it is a hit scan weapon. So this is a very weird property of her weapon, but it's important to know it functions that way. Ana's thing is that she does a fucking lot of healing, right? Like, she is the highest output healer in the game. Especially when you... because of her grenade, right? Like, she heals a lot of she does a lot of healing, and she does it from very far away, so she's very safe as a result of this. Her ultimate also charges extremely fast because she does a lot of healing. Also, she's quite good at killing Farah, because she can kill Farah in 3 hits, which is not actually that hard, because her weapon fires very quickly, and is hit scan when scoped. The issues our Ana players usually have is that they are too frivolous with their cooldowns, because Ana's grenade is easily the strongest thing about Ana. If you hit your tank and the enemy tank with your grenade, you win the team fight, usually, because it is that strong. Your tank suddenly can't die, because he's getting an insane amount of healing suddenly, and the enemy tank can't be healed at all. That's a big deal. The most common mistake I see anime players make is that they use their grenade between fights to heal people up. That is a terrible use of company resources. You want to hit as many people with a grenade as possible, both on your team and the enemy team, so you want to use it in a team fight and hit as many people as possible. If you can just hit a lot of your own team, that's great. If you can only hit a lot of your enemy team, that's also great, but, like, don't use it between fights to heal people up. You can just left-click them. There's no rush. The grenade is the strongest thing about Ana. It is really what you're trying to leverage, because, like, the healing debuff is, like, guaranteed death for somebody. And it's basically impossible to kill somebody with the healing buff on your own team. Other common issue, people throw their trank out for no reason at all. You need the trank to try and save yourself from people. You need it to deny certain teams certain enemy ultimates. It's very important cooldown. People usually just throw it out there hoping it hits somebody. Do not do that. You need to be very deliberate with the trank, because it's a very important ability. It's a very strong ability. If you trank somebody on the enemy team, assuming that they are not just, like, in fucking no man's land, like, behind the other team, like, it's basically a guaranteed kill, because it's an obscenely long CC. As long as somebody doesn't immediately wake them up, like, it's very easy to convert a tranked person into a kill. So, but the way you win as Ana is that, I should say, also, support heroes in general, there's this conception where the people think you have to be kind of altruistic and very selfless. To me, support heroes are the most selfish heroes in the game, because you're the most important hero on the team. If you die, your entire team dies, so your own self-preservation is the most important thing for you. So, all supports are basically surviving, and you're also probably going to be the most focused person on your team. So it's about surviving more than anything else, and making sure your own team don't die. So, this is the exact order, though. It is self-preservation, healing your team, doing damage. That's the exact order of events. Because if you die, you can't heal people. So, staying alive is the most important thing. And you're a support, so you're meant to heal people. That's more important than doing damage. So that's always the order of events. You have to survive, heal people, and then do damage. So you have to put your own self-preservation above all else. Because I see a lot of Mercy players, they see the Reinhardt going in, charging in fucking stupidly, and then they're like, I'm gonna fix this person's mistake. No, you're gonna die as well, and then your whole team is gonna die. Don't risk yourself to fix somebody else's mistake, because you are more important than that person. Because if they, you are the most important person on the team. I've seen plenty of fights where we lose the main tank right at the start of the fight, but we still win the fight. I've seen almost no team fights where we lose our Mercy right at the start of the fight, and we still win the team fight. Supports are very important. Your self-preservation is paramount. So, Ana sits far back, because she is a long-range healer. This is the thing she has over other healers. She's very long-range. And her own cooldowns are very good at defending herself. Like, if a Tracer pops out on you, you hit the Tracer and yourself. Tracer has to use Recall. And then she has to play more passively as a result. You can always trank the person. You can trank the Genji as well, blah, 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 blah. So, you sit far back. But a lot of Anas, they get really up close to people. They start moving into the people they're firing at. Don't do that. Sit very far back. Be frugal with your cooldowns, because you don't want to just throw them out willy-nilly. They're very long cooldowns, and they're very impactful. So cooldown management is a big deal for Ana. You sit very far back, you make it so your team can't die. You try and fight the enemy Farah if you can, because that's something you have to try and do as Ana. You have to balance healing still, because healing is still more important. Don't let somebody die, you have to still heal that person. And then use your ultimate as soon as you can. Nano Boost charges insanely fast, because Ana does so much healing, and she can do some damage as well. It charges very fast. The first opportunity you have to use it, you should use it. If you're trying to combo with a Dragon Blade or a Nat Attack Visor, you'll save it now and then, but you're looking to use it as soon as possible. And if they're at 20% charge and you're at 100% charge, you're going to build up another one before they do. Just use it on somebody. You want to use it as soon as possible so you can start using it, start building the next one as quickly as possible. If you, Overwatch is this way, where if you're playing a hero and they have a copy of your hero on their team as well, if you just ult more than your counterpart, you probably won the game. Because Overwatch is very based around ultimates. Use Nano Boost very, very fast. But, all supports are about self-preservation and healing. You sit very far back, you use your cooldowns defensively if you have to. You try to leverage them as much as possible, particularly the grenade. You try to set up kills with the Trank, you try to deny ultimates and kills in general with it, and you just sit back, you stay safe, and you heal people. Quite simple overall. But all heroes are basically about this. Lucio is one of the aggressive heroes, supports in the game, sharing this distinction with Moira. And the way you win as Lucio is the speed boost. Very common issue with Lucio players is that they think their default setting is healing. No. The thing that's really strong about Lucio is the speed boost. He has the monopoly on speed boosts in this game, and this is why Lucio has always consistently been a good hero, because the speed boost is very strong. You should be in the speed boost as much as possible. You need a reason to change to healing. Most people sit in the healing all the time, they need a reason to change to speed. No. Speed is your default setting. You're trying to spend as much time in speed as possible. And the way you win is you fucking move those people in. Ideally, you've got an aggressive team comp as well. You probably got a dive comp if you're picking Lucio. And you make it easy for people to kill people, because you go in with those people, right? And you do damage as well. Lucio, he does damage, he can kill people. He's got that as well going for him. Your healing aura is trash unless you have Amp It Up, basically. So if you're gonna heal somebody, you want to use Amp It Up, and then switching it back and forth, doing the DSP stanky business, you know the one. Because the aura effect persists a little bit even when you're switched between them. Small thing, you kind of boost in the direction that you're looking when you wall jump, because you get a little bit of a boost in the direction. If you look up, you actually go slightly further, because it boosts you in a arc. Small thing, can matter. But basically the way you win is by speed boosting people. You are a very aggressive support. Your ultimate is not defensive. Sound Barrier is a very poor defensive ultimate, though it is usually thought of being a defensive ultimate. It is better to use it when you're going in, because you Sound Barrier, amp up the speed boost, go in. The Sound Barrier decays fast, but it absorbs the damage you take while you're going in. And then it just makes it way easier to engage a fight. It is quite bad defensively. It can be used defensively, but it's very bad defensively. It's no Transcendence. The way you win as Lucio is you speed boost your team in and you facilitate kills. This is what the off healers do. The off supports. They do less healing, but they facilitate kills. So, if you're a main healer, you're about self-preservation and healing. If you're an off healer, you're still about self-preservation as well, but you're also about facilitating kills rather than healing people, right? Which main healer is self-preservation, healing. But that's how you win as Lucio. Speed boost. Leverage the speed boost. Go in there. Fight people. Speed boost. Peel for people if you can. Lucio's okay with peeling for people. Lucio, you see your Mercy getting bullied by a Genji. Ooh, push him away. Dashes up with Dragon Blade. Push him away. Winston or Deva come in. Push him away. So peel for people if you can. Lucio's good at peeling. Speed boost them away. Remember, speed boost. That's what you're trying to leverage. His healing is quite bad. If you're trying to heal people, amp it up is very important for that, because the healing aura by itself is quite bad. It's good at healing up, like, chip damage, but, like, not good for healing. Speed boost is what you're trying to leverage as Lucio, because it helps facilitate kills. So, Mercy, strongest hero in the game right now, basically. So, Mercy is, of course, about self-preservation. The thing that is strong about Mercy right now is her res and Valkyrie, both of which are very strong. Her ultimate, very fucking strong. So, obviously Mercy's default setting is very simple, where you want to be in the enemy's line of sight as little as possible. You're a main healer, so you're largely about self-preservation, and healing. But, like, you can do stuff from outside of line of sight, right? Like, you can sit around a corner and be healing your soldier, or damage boosting your soldier. And the enemy team, ideally you're in the enemy team's line of sight as little as possible. And you're just sitting back, you're healing people, you're damage boosting people. Very important, do not sit there just healing somebody at full HP, because if you're healing somebody at full HP, that's the same as your beam being turned off entirely, because it's doing nothing. So as soon as somebody's full HP, be damage boosting someone. Mercy is, can be difficult to carry a game as Mercy, and it's largely about being as efficient as possible. So, don't heal somebody at full HP. I call that empty healing. Just, as soon as somebody's full HP, be damage boosting somebody. Even if you're on your way to heal somebody, be damage boosting somebody on your way there, right? Efficiency. But the thing that is strong about Mercy, and the thing that is going to win you the game, is Resurrect and Valkyrie. They nerfed Resurrect so that it has a cast time on it now, and you can lose the cooldown if you get crowd controlled while you're doing it, or you get pushed away while you're doing it. You can use this to negate picks. Like, if your soldier just, like, randomly dies because Widowmaker shot him or whatever, you can walk up, res the person, undo the pick. That's very strong. Tracer, like, blinked in, recalled out, use Pulse Bomb. You negated an ultimate with a basic ability. Resurrect has the effect of an ultimate, but it is a basic ability, which makes it very strong. Like, it's a basic ability that can trade 1-for-1 with ultimates. It's very strong. But you can die while you're doing it, so do not, like, if somebody dies out in no man's land, do not go out there and try to res that person, because you will die. The exception is if you have Valkyrie, because Valkyrie removes the cast time. And it gives you a second charge on res, which you lose when Valkyrie ends. So if you've got 2 charges of res while you're using Valkyrie, try to use the first charge before Valkyrie ends. Because then you maintain the other charge when it ends still, but you don't get to keep the second charge if it just ends. So it lasts 20 seconds, your beams are AoE, and you have free movement. It's insanely powerful. Valkyrie is essentially, I would like to win this team fight now. It is that kind of ultimate, because it is very hard to kill the Mercy in Valkyrie, because you're flying very high in the sky. The effect around you obfuscates your hitbox, which makes you harder to hit. You are just naturally harder to hit because you're in the sky. Certain heroes can't even hit you at all. It's very strong. Your beams are AoE, so suddenly it's very hard to kill your team. You get to resurrect 2 people. This is also why if one team has a Mercy but the other team doesn't have a Mercy, that's a serious detriment, because the team that doesn't have a Mercy just has to kill more people. Because the Mercy will res 2 people during the team fight, assuming you didn't kill the Mercy, obviously that can happen. That's hard to do if the Mercy's playing well, but the Mercy will res 2 people, and that's just 2 extra, suddenly one team has to kill 8 people, whereas the other team only has to kill 6 people. So, Mercy is very strong, and it's hard to kill the Mercy, it's hard to kill people that she's healing when ultimate is very strong ultimate. Valkyrie is very powerful. It's better to use it too early than it is too late, because it also lasts 20 seconds, which is an insanely long period of time. Just don't... A lot of people use it as a panic response and then immediately die, right? Use it early rather than late, because if you use it late, you will die. If you use it early, you might not get the full value out of it, but you still got value out of it, right? Your team can still fight with it, the enemy team still can't fight you very easily. But the thing that is really just, don't die. Remember, you are the most important person on your team. You're more important than the other supports on your team, as Mercy. Mercy is, bar none, the most important hero in the game. So, if you see somebody go out, if you see somebody make a mistake, do not try to fix their mistake, because you will probably just die, as Zolt said. But you are so much more important than them. And if you've got Valkyrie, maybe you can undo it. If they went, really out in no man's land, GA is mad fast in Valkyrie, so you can usually, fly out there, res them, and fly back again before you die. But don't try to fix people's mistakes. Try to be out of the enemy team's line of sight as much as possible. Undo picks, try to negate enemy team's ultimates, and then use Valkyrie to win the team fight, because it is a very strong ultimate in that way. So, that's basically Mercy. It's all about survival with Mercy. She's very light mechanically. She's all about, juking with GA, using Valkyrie correctly to get, basically win the team fight, going for the good res, avoiding bad reses, going for good reses, blah, blah, blah. Largely about game sense. Very simple hero to play in mechanical terms. So Moira, my favorite hero in the game. I fuck all other heroes. I love playing Moira. So Moira, I think, is the hardest hero to play in the game. People think Ana's hard to play, but that's just because she has, an aim requirement. The reason I think Moira is the hardest hero to play is because she has resource management, cooldown management, she has to balance doing healing and doing damage, because that ties into it. She does have an aim requirement. It's relatively light, because, there's a slight lock-on to her ultimate, but you can... to her beam. As you can see, it's fairly lenient, but, she still does have an aim requirement. If there's a Genji flipping around, you're not going to be tethered to him constantly. And she has to play more aggressively, so she has to play closer to the enemy team's front line. So, Moira, you're still playing a healer. You do a lot of healing. You are very close to Ana in terms of healing output. So, Ana and Moira on the same team makes it very obnoxiously hard for people to die, because it's a lot of healing output. Moira is a hero that puts up very big numbers, but over an extended period of time. If you're just right-clicking someone, it takes you 4 seconds to kill somebody because it does 50 damage per second. So, but by the end of the game, you can have gold damage. That's not that unusual. You'll quite easily have gold eliminations. She does a lot of healing. She can easily have gold healing as well, but, again, you do this over time. It's not typically, she doesn't do anything, she doesn't do big numbers immediately, right? So, the biggest thing about Moira is using your orbs correctly. Basically, you always use the damage orb. Because, the way the orb works is it does 200 damage, and once the 200 damage is over, the orb is gone. It does all its damage, disappears. The thing is, though, 200 damage is 10% ult charge for Moira. So this is the thing with Moira. Her ult charge is insanely fast. Hers is the fastest charging ult in the game. Because she gets the benefit from all this healing, and then, she gets the benefit from all this damage as well, and it builds up very quickly. So the orbs, you want to throw the damage orb out, on cooldown. The healing orb is not very useful. Don't use that one so much, because the healing orb does 300 healing, 75 health per second. It's very hard to get the full value out of the healing orb unless a lot of people are wounded very close together. In the middle of a team fight, sometimes it's helpful, but your left-click healing is so much healing that it is usually plenty. Using the orb as well tends to be overkill. You almost always waste the healing orb. The damage orb is significantly better. the healing orb is best used if you're very far away from someone and they need healing urgently. The orb travels faster than you, so that can save somebody. Or if you're dueling somebody, because if like a Genji pops out on you and you bounce your orb around on you, like, very important also, don't do this, because then it flies into the sky and does nothing. Bounce it off walls. This is true of both orbs. You don't want it to go up, because then it'll start doing nothing. You want it to keep it horizontal. If you bounce the healing orb off yourself in a duel, and then you're draining the person as well, the drain is 33 health per second, and then 75 health per second off the orb. Suddenly the person has to out-damage over 100 health per second to kill you. That is very hard. It's very hard to kill Moira. Plus Fade as well. So if you use all your abilities selfishly, you're very hard to kill. But she's a hero about efficiency. Like, there's a learning curve because she has a mechanical requirement and a game sense requirement, and she's all about getting like small efficiencies out of heroes. If you like min-maxing your play, you'll love playing Moira because she's a lot about getting like small increases in efficiency, finding like the angle to bounce balls off of so that they get like a little bit more. But the way you really win the game as Moira is her ultimate, as with most heroes, because her ultimate charges very fast. It's the fastest charging ult in the game. And it lasts forever. It lasts 8 seconds. It has a 30-meter range, and it has an aggressive and a defensive component. So, you are looking to use it as soon as you get it. Like, even an okay situation, like, you can use it before a team fight starts, because it has an aggressive and defensive component. So, you can use it before a team fight is even started. And the enemy team have to respond to it in some way. They have to give up some ground, they have to get out of line of sight, whatever. Your team can go in with the healing. You're still damaging them, because it's of course AoE as well, and then you last forever, right? Like, it lasts such a long time that it's very easy to get value out of it, even if, like, no fight was happening at the start. It is not an ultimate that's going to swing a lost team fight around. Like, it's still a support ultimate, you still want to use it as early in the fight as possible, because you're trying to heal people with it and do damage. So you want as many people to benefit from it as possible. If you're already down, like, 2 people, it's not going to win the team fight for you. You're probably just going to waste the ultimate as well. But this is how Moira wins games. You throw orbs out constantly. You're healing people. You're doing damage. You build your ult fast, and then you just keep using your ultimate over and over and over and over again. Resource management is a big deal because you get 9 seconds on your resource by default. It takes 45 seconds to refill from empty to full by itself. And then doing damage accelerates this, obviously, but you have to be careful, because you can get caught in a situation where you have no resource, and you can't do any healing. It's not immediately obvious, but there is a healing over time effect on Moira's beam. It heals 50 health over the next 4 seconds, so it's not huge, but it heals off chip damage. So you want to do this as little as possible. You're trying to, like, use the healing over time as much as possible. If someone's fighting, yeah, you do this. Then it's hard for the person to die. But if you're just, like, chip damage, you just sprinkle them. And, like, your team's just, like, in a roughly neutral position, poking back and forth with each other. Just, like, do that. And then when it's about to run out again, just, like, refresh it, and you do, like, it uses almost no resource. And then you just keep charging with your ultimate. And I never look at the bar, honestly. Basically, the way I look at it is if I've done, like, 2-3 seconds of healing, I try to do 2-3 seconds of damage to even it out, right? Doing like, oh, don't do this. Don't, like, waste your resource for no reason. Try to let the regen do it as much as possible. If you've done some damage, if you've done some healing, try to even it out with doing damage, because it recharges so slowly. You have to do damage. And as a result, you also have to also play more aggressively as Moira, but Fade is a fantastic cooldown because you're invisible, move very fast, move quite far, and you're invulnerable while you're doing it. So you can also use it to dodge ultimates. You see the Reinhardt use Earth Shatter? Even if it hits you, you're invulnerable, so it goes right through you. So you have to play more aggressively. She's a hard hero to play because she has to do damage, she has to balance doing damage and doing healing. She has to play more aggressively, which is harder to position, just naturally. You want to be with your front line. You don't want to be the front line. Someone's always between you and the enemy team still, but you do have to play more aggressively because you do have to do damage as Moira. But she's a hero about getting small efficiencies out, like min-maxing, throwing orbs out constantly, build ult, use ult, win game. And that's basically how you play Moira. Hardest support to play, very rewarding though. So Symmetra, more of a defensive hero than she is a support, but she plays very similarly to a defense hero. She obviously has no healing. And you basically do a similar thing to defense heroes, where you're trying to set up a zone. The thing that Symmetra has is that her ultimate charges very quickly, because her orbs do a lot of damage, and she can build her ultimate very quickly. It is not unreasonable to assume a Symmetra is going to get her ultimate within the first 30 seconds of a game starting. And this is what you're trying to do. You're trying to build up your ultimate, because her ultimate is very strong. Both variations of it, though the teleporter is typically more impactful than the shield generator. And you just set up a zone, right? Like, the thing that Symmetra players do is they do like this. And this is very bad, because this makes it so easy to break your turrets, and like, this is so easy to break all these turrets. You do not want to do that. Now I have to wait for the clip. Well, I can just go in and switch, and then I'll reset back up, right? I'm pretty sure, you know? Because we're trying to expedite this a little bit here. We've almost been here for 3 fucking hours. Oh, God. My throat's gonna hate me in the morning. So, what you're trying to do is you want to make the turrets as obnoxious as possible. You want them to have to make an annoying turn to break it, right? So you spread them out, because if they're close together, just like Mccrae Flashbang, all broken. Mirror Orb will break them all anyway. Winston just like breaks them all. You want it to be annoying, which basically means up and back. Because you want it to be annoying, right? Because if you comes through your choke point and it's just like, there, that's not a very harsh movement, right? They go like, oh, broken. Whereas if it's behind them, they have to go, oh, and then they have to go, oh, to break the one on the other side of the doorway. You want it to be you want it to take time for them to break to break the turrets, right? And you just set up like a base that makes it hard for them. It's hard to advance into symmetric turrets without breaking them, because they slow the person, they do damage. Oh god, so terrible. And you just build up your ultimate, and you put your ultimate down, and your ultimate is what's going to win you the game. You have to protect the ultimate, and then you you protect your ultimate. It's your job to protect the ultimate. It's not your team's job. It's your job to protect the ultimate. And you make attackers' lives difficult. Genji comes in, no, I'd rather you didn't. You make Tracer's life difficult. It makes it very difficult to move into Symmetra's zone, because her zone can actually be quite large, because she can put her turrets in a variety of places. But you're just trying to build up your ult as quickly as possible, throwing orbs through people. Like, this is very annoying. If you're just doing this at the enemy team, that's extremely annoying, and can just lead to random kills happening. And you just build up your ultimate very quickly, you put it down, easy money. You can play Symmetra offensively as well. It's not as bad as people say it is, because especially if they've got like a turret comp, right? They've got like a Bastion sat behind the Irisa shield and the Reinhardt shield. These go through those shields, so that's pretty fucking good already. The way you do it is that you basically set up a forward base. Anubis is like the simplest example. Imagine we're going to go left on Anubis when we're attacking, right? The way you do it is you go in the left with your team, and then like the big doorway into the large health kit. If the enemy team is into the large health kit room, you put turrets around the door frame, and then suddenly they can't come into you, right? The defending team can't come into the room to fight you, because you've put up a forward base in this room. And then you poke at them from the doorway, and then eventually, because they can't come into you, eventually you're going to get the advantage, and then you push into the health kit room. Then you do the same thing again on the doorway going up onto the high ground. You put the turrets around the door frame, and then now the enemy team, they can't really come into you because you've put the turrets there, so you've moved your forward base up a little bit, and then you just poke and prod at them until you gain the advantage, and you can push in like that. And then obviously if you got a payload, you put the turrets on the payload and you push forward. But it's better than people think it is. Offensive Symmetra has its position, it has its place, especially versus a Reinhardt Irisa Bastion comp, where she can fuck with the Bastion through shields. But basically you build up your ultimate very quickly. Easy money. Set up a zone. Surprisingly large zone, and you make it very threatening. It's very close to a defense hero in terms of playstyle. Final hero of the game, Zenyatta. So Zenyatta is the other off healer, which means he is not so good at healing, but he's very good offensively because, Discord Orb is so strong. It makes it so easy for people to die. This is why the old school dive comp was Lucio and Zenyatta, because Zenyatta would put the Discord Orb on the person they were diving, Lucio would boost them into the person they're trying to kill, and they die very fucking fast. Not so much the way anymore, but Discord Orb is still very threatening. Like, people who have the Discord Orb on them have to wait for that to be off, because it's very hard to fight with Discord Orb on. So the way you play Zenyatta is a very soft hero. He's got no mobility, he's very easy to kill, he's literally a floating cube in terms of hitbox. So as a result, he's very easy to kill. You can stand as far back as you want because your orbs have no fall-off damage. It doesn't matter if they're all the way over there, that's still full damage. As long as you are in range to put orbs on people, you are inside your effective range. So, sit as far back as possible. A lot of Zenyatas, they start walking into the person they're firing at. Don't do that. You are so easy to kill as Zenyatta. You have to sit back and be defensive. You usually sit in similar locations to Soldier because you have a very long range and you don't want people to be with you. You benefit from being on high ground because of the same reason Soldier and Mccrae and them do as well. So, you sit back, and you put the Harmony Orb on someone. It's not a huge amount of healing, but, you know, it's healing. You put it on somebody. You put the Discord Orb on the highest priority target. This is an important thing. Don't just, like, move it around. People tend to think of Discord Orb as, like, it's my ability, it's my damage boost. So they tend to move it around to focus on to the person they're focusing on. You usually just want to put it on the person that's the highest priority target and leave it there, because they're the highest priority target for a reason. Like, if you can get it on the Mercy, just leave it on the Mercy. Even if you're not shooting at the Mercy right now, somebody else is trying to kill Mercy still. Like, a lot of people, they just go, put it on the highest priority target. Ideally, you call out that you put it on the person. I don't give a shit if you talk to any human beings in this game. But, like, you put it on the person that's the highest priority target, you leave it on them. It's probably a support or a tank, because it makes tanks very soft, and supports you just want dead. So you put it on one of them, and you leave it on them. Don't just move it around all the time, like people do. Zenyatta's very good at helping flankers, because Harmony Orb persists without line of sight for a little while, right? Like, it takes 3 seconds to break, so he's very good at supporting Genjis and Tracers, because they can go off with the Harmony Orb on them and still get some work done. With it on them, and it makes it easier, and then you put the Discord Orb on the Mercy, and it makes it very hard for them. You put it on the Farah is very easy for the Soldier to kill, stuff like that. You're about setting up kills and staying safe, because you're very easy to kill, so you have to sit back. And then Transcendence is the defensive ultimate in the game, because people don't die through Transcendence unless they get one shot. Or they get healing debuffed by Ana. That's the other way. But Transcendence is very strong. And if there's a Zarya on the enemy team, I highly recommend picking Zenyatta, because he is the counter to Graviton, basically. But this is basically what you do with Zenyatta. You sit very far back, you make sure your orbs are always up, like you should always have your orbs up. Discord Orb you won't always realistically be able to have up, because you do need to be able to see somebody without a shield in the way. And that's not always going to happen with the enemy team, especially when fights are resetting. But the Harmony Orb should always be on somebody. You want your orbs up as much as possible. As soon as you can put them on somebody, put them on somebody. And then you just try to set up kills. Again, you're the off healer, so you're doing the same thing as Lucio. You're trying to set up kills. You're not very high on the healing output, but you're very high on the facilitating kills. So you help flankers as much as you can, because you're really good at helping them. You're good at helping Farah as well. You use Transcendence to no-sell certain ultimates, like Graviton, Dragon Blade, Tack Visor. He's very good at nulling out these very, very strong ultimates. They are ultimates that usually, like, you just hear Tack Visor, you hear Dragon Blade, you just push the button. Like, don't even hesitate, because, like, it's better that you use it too soon rather than too late. Because too late, you die, Transcendence doesn't happen, the whole team dies. You use it too soon, well, you know, he still used Dragon Blade. Like, that's still what you want to use it for, you know. And don't hesitate to use it. People are like, maybe I don't need to use it, and then they try to use it, and the person dies right as they use it, right? Like, it's better to use it too soon than it is to use it too late. Also, another thing, Zenyatta is still easy to kill. You want to use Transcendence to heal people, but then as it's running out, you want to start backing up. Because you're still easy to kill, you still want to die. Self-preservation is still paramount, because you are still playing support. So, as soon as Transcendence is running out, you want to be backing out of the fight, so you don't come out of Transcendence right in front of the enemy team and immediately die, because that's not very productive for a support. But basically this is what you do. You sit very far back, probably with your Soldier, your Ana, whatever. You're sitting back with your very far back line, putting Discord on high priority targets. Remember, you're still a support. Healing is still self-preservation, healing, doing damage. So if somebody needs healing, that takes precedent over hitting other people. Another gripe I have with Zenyatta players is they use their right-click fucking constantly, which I hate. I am of the opinion that you should only use the Discord or the right-click in certain situations, which is you're trying to peek a turret, you're trying to peek a sniper, which I don't recommend doing for other reasons. you're trying to kill somebody through a wall because you're tracking them with Infrasight or your Discord Orb, and you want to kill them as soon as they come around the corner. Or maybe if you yourself are about to peek a corner. But people, they use it constantly. They use it during fights, they use it just for no reason. They just sit there charging it up, and then they do this, but then what happens then is they end up in the middle of a fight oh fuck, I shot twice, ran out, and then they cancel their reload a fucking ton of times. Don't do that either. Just let your reload finish. Don't keep canceling it. But do not use your right click constantly. I hate when people do that. And you can fucking fight me if you want. Someone always wants to fight me on it. You can meet me in the pit and we will fight about it. Okay? I love fighting people. But that's basically how you play Zenyatta. You facilitate your team doing damage with Discord Orb, and you no-sell very scary ultimates with Transcendence. And that is basically how you play every single hero in the game, with the exception of Doomfist, whom we do not pick. So thank you very much for watching, if you did. Especially if you watched the whole thing. Jesus Christ, you maniac. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer, and I hope you found the video helpful.